Chapter 944. It was Hua Xiaoheng's voice. Gu Nianji let out a long sigh and hugged the baseball bat as she sat down against the wall. She wasn't being pretentious, but she was too nervous just now. She thought that Ishihara was so powerful that even a thief could be used. There were also many cases of burglary and murder. As a single woman living here, she was most afraid of this kind of thing. Hua Xiaoheng probably understood what she was thinking, so he immediately told her his name when he opened the door. Gu Nianji raised her voice. Hua Xiao? What are you doing here so late? Hua Xiaoheng pressed the switch on the wall to turn on the living room lights. The recessed ceiling lamp lit up the dark living room as if it was daytime. Gu Nianji, who was sitting against the wall in her bedroom, rubbed her eyes. Letting go of his arm, a pair of long legs appeared in front of him. Hua Xiaoheng, who was still wearing his military uniform coat, stood in front of her and looked down at her. His expression was the same as usual. It was warm yet distant, calm yet dignified. He looked at Gu Nianji quietly. However, Gu Nianji could sense his anger from his body. He couldn't help but hold the baseball bat tighter. Hua Xiaoheng stared at Gu Nianji for a while and extended his hand helplessly. Why are you sitting on the ground? Get up. Gu Nianji looked closely at his hand. His palm was slightly wide and there was a thin callus on his palm. There was also a faint smell of gunpowder on his hand. It was the smell of bullets. His fingers were slender and strong. She could not see the joints, but she could see that his fingers were very straight. There were no fingernails and his fingertips were trimmed neatly. When he extended his fingers to her, it was as if he could give her the whole world. Gu Nianji didn't want to hold his hand to stand up, but for some strange reason she was bewitched by his perfect hand shape and placed her little hand on it. Hua Xiaoheng held her hand tightly, his heart fluttering. Her little hands were as soft as silk, and there was a sense of toughness in them. Such a soft pair of small hands should be properly stored and safeguarded, so that she would not be exposed to the elements. However, this thought only flashed through his mind for a moment before he discarded it. Gu Nianji wasn't the kind of helpless little girl who only knew how to hide behind him and tremble. He would not break her wings that wanted to fly. However, it wanted to fly away from his control before its wings had fully grown. That was just wishful thinking. Hua Xiaoheng calmly pulled Gu Nianji up from the ground and pulled her forward. Gu Nianji couldn't stand still and hugged the baseball bat as she fell into Hua Xiaoheng's arms. Hua Xiaoheng wrapped his arms around her and smiled. Darling, you don't have to be so passionate. Gu Nianji, fortunately the baseball bat was between them. Otherwise, Gu Nianji felt that she really wouldn't be able to explain herself. She pressed the baseball bat against Hua Xiaoheng's chest and slowly pushed him away. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng with a half smile. Hua Xiao, what brings you here so late at night? Hua Xiaoheng's smile faded, and his expression darkened. I should be the one asking you that. What exactly do you want? She suddenly stopped living in the school dormitory and returned to her apartment in the Hipingli district as a day student. She didn't like to drive the Ferrari before because it was too flashy. But now he drove it to and from school every day. All of this indicated that something was amiss. Hua Xiaoheng understood Gu Nianji very well. He also knew that she wasn't a rash person who changed her mind abruptly. She always had her reasons for everything she did. Although Hua Xiaoheng thought that some of her reasons were too childish, he usually didn't comment on them. Gu Nianji pursed her lips. In the half-dark bedroom, she and Hua Xiaoheng were half in the darkness and half in the light. Hua Xiaoheng's back was to the light, so Gu Nianji couldn't see the expression on his face clearly. She only saw that his eyes were very bright. They were like stars guiding the way in the darkness, illuminating her path forward. She knew that Hua Xiaoheng could see her facial expression clearly, so she was very cautious and didn't let herself reveal any strange expressions. She couldn't let Hua Xiaoheng know what she wanted to do. If he knew, he might take the risk of making a mistake to deal with Ishihara Taro. Gu Nianji absolutely didn't want Hua Xiaoheng to fall into any passive situation because of her. This man was protecting her, and she was also silently protecting this man. Perhaps she didn't dare to love him again, but she couldn't not protect him. Ishihara Taro was too cunning. Even with Gu Nianji's knowledge of the law, she couldn't find any law that could openly convict Ishihara Taro. Even if he was caught throwing the coin, even if she could prove that Ishihara Taro threw the coin and caused the subsequent series of events, the court wouldn't be able to convict him. Because the connection was too weak, it was almost impossible to determine that there was criminal evidence. Under such circumstances, she couldn't drag Hua Xiaoheng into this. The people in the system couldn't do what she was about to do, not even a little bit. Hua Xiaoheng looked down at Gu Nianji. He wasn't surprised to see the stubborn expression on her face that he was very familiar with. It was just like the year she started following him. She was only 12 years old, but she was so stubborn that it gave him a headache. He told her many times to go back to her room to sleep at night, but he would always find her hugging her little blanket and sleeping in front of his room in the middle of the night. He carried her back and often watched over her before falling asleep together. Later, when she grew older, it wasn't appropriate for him to go to her bed to sleep with her. In the end, he could only move her room to the one opposite his and leave the door open when they slept at night. Gunyenji could only sleep peacefully when she could see the light in the room opposite her from the bed in her own room. Nyenji, I know you are very smart and very brave, but I hope you understand that you can't just rely on bravery to do things. Xiaoheng pointed at his head. You have to think carefully about the cause and effect. I've thought it through, Gunyenji said instinctively. Xiaoheng's expression immediately turned cold. So you really are plotting something? Gunyenji's lips twitched. How many times had this happened? This person was too cunning. He could easily get information out of her. Gunyenji turned her head away and didn't look at Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng pulled her to the bed in the bedroom with a headache and lifted the blanket. You're wearing too little. Go in first. Gunyenji placed the baseball bat on the side of the bed and took off her shoes. She climbed into bed and covered herself with the blanket. Xiaoheng adjusted the blanket for her and sat by her bed to look at her. His deep voice echoed in the bedroom late at night. Gunyenji's ears turned red from hearing it. Nyenji, you're in a very dangerous situation. Gunyenji blinked and whispered, I know. I can handle it. No one understood her situation better than she did. You can really handle it? Xiaoheng's voice became calm. According to the news from Japan, they found out the inside story of Ishihara Baisan committing suicide. Gunyenji's eyes lit up and she asked eagerly, what reason? Xiaoheng said word by word, Ishihara Baisan committed suicide because he was directly provoked by your father, Gu Xiangwen. Gunyenji was speechless. Little Japan's psychological endurance was too weak and he was jealous of people with talent. How can he blame my father? Gunyenji snorted disdainfully. I don't believe it. Your father personally told Ishihara Baisan in front of many people in the Ishihara family, useless. You think you're worthy of comparing progress with me? Just this one sentence made Ishihara Baisan feel so humiliated that he committed suicide. Nyenji, do you know what this means? Gunyenji laughed and clapped. This means that Little Japan's magnetic field research went back 50 years. Good, that's my father for you. He scolded Little Japan to death with just one sentence. I'm proud of him. Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. He hadn't thought of this reason, but he immediately realized it when Gunyenji said it. He couldn't help but be full of respect for Gu Xiangwen. After a moment of silence he said calmly, Nyenji, the Ishihara family will not let you off for killing your father. Gunyenji didn't expect Xiaoheng to be able to guess that the Ishihara family was the mastermind even though he didn't know about Ishihara Taro's relationship with Dollar. Her whole body trembled and she used all her strength to calm her racing heart. She laughed coldly and said, then come at me. Who's afraid of who? It was the third watch. It was a new month. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. P.S. It's good as long as you like it. I hope more people come to Chidian Girls Network to support. Hello, Major General. Vote and subscribe. Thank you. Chidian readers also had official subscriptions. You can also use Chidian readers to vote. Yun Chi and Kuku Reading's dearest friends were kissing. Chapter 945. Who's afraid of who? Miss Gu, you're very confident, aren't you? Xiaoheng smiled. His slender fingers reached out and smoothed her hair to reveal her smooth forehead. He bent down to kiss it. Gunyenji closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled like two rows of little fans gently flapping. Of course I'm confident because you gave me confidence. Gunyenji mumbled. She reached out and hugged Xiaoheng's neck. Xiaoheng stared at her, and the smile on his face faded. Okay, tell me. What's your plan? Don't think that you can fool me by acting cute. Gunyenji opened her eyes. Her pupils were so dark that they were shining. She shook her head slowly and rejected his threat. No, I don't have a plan. You really don't? Xiaoheng grabbed her arm and pulled it away from his neck. Then he clamped both of her wrists with one hand and pressed them onto the pillow. His imposing figure pressed dangerously down and completely covered her. You really won't tell me? Gunyenji pursed her lips and blinked her big eyes, but she didn't say anything. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, the incident at their dormitory building's elevator was Ishihara Taro's doing. She had spread the rumor that she was graduating early to force Ishihara Taro to make his move earlier. Although Gunyenji had added fuel to the fire, She hadn't expected Ishihara Taro to not even let Gue Suyao off. No one knew better than her how crazy this person was and how disregarding human life was. No one knew better than her how difficult it would be to bring him to justice. Now that she knew about her father's entanglement with the Ishihara family, all the more she couldn't ignore it and stop halfway. This matter wasn't something Huo Xiaoheng could interfere with. She didn't want him to interfere either. He had many tricks up his sleeves, but there were too many constraints from the Special Operations Forces in the Huaxia Empire. If he let his guard down even a little, it would be a devastating blow to Huo Xiaoheng's career. Gu Nianji smiled, revealing her pearly white teeth. I really don't have any plans. She paused and continued, even if I do, it's a foolproof plan. You don't have to worry. Huo Xiaoheng stared at Gu Nianji. His calm gaze gradually became more anxious and uneasy. He let go of Gu Nianji's wrist and straightened up to sit on the armchair next to the bed. He crossed his legs, his tall frame casting a shadow, and his gaze gradually became serious. Gu Nianji, look at me. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know who your enemy is? Do you know what they have up their sleeves? How much energy does it have? If you know all this and still stubbornly refuse to tell me what you want to do, I really have to wonder if you're still the Gu Nianji that I raised. It was the first time in both of their memories that he had spoken to Gu Nianji so harshly. Gu Nianji sat up from under the blankets and took a deep breath. Mustering her courage, she said, Huo Xiao, I know what kind of situation I'll be facing, and I know you'll be worried. But can you have some faith in me for once? Confidence? Yes, believe me, I can do this well. I can handle this situation. In reality, only she could handle it. Huo Xiaoheng frowned. It's not that I don't believe you, but two minds are better than one. If you don't say it, how do I know if I should be reassured? Gu Nianji knew that she couldn't say it. The moment she said it, the situation would change and become fake randomness. There were too many variables, so there was no way to talk about the so-called algorithm. She also couldn't continue fighting with Ishihara Taro. Gu Nianji looked down, her hands unconsciously digging at the silk blanket. In the end, you still don't believe in me and my abilities. It's not that I don't believe in your abilities. I know you're very smart and powerful, but what? Gu Nianji interrupted Huo Xiaoheng and gritted her teeth. When I was in danger in Germany, I still walked out of the Alps alive without you. Huo Xiaoheng's voice stopped abruptly. His gaze gradually deepened, and his expression became stern as he looked at Gu Nianji without moving. Germany was in danger. It was Germany again. That matter that put their relationship in jeopardy was like a huge mountain between them. Sometimes he felt that they had already crossed that mountain, but after going around in circles, he would always discover that they were actually still separated by mountains and oceans. Gu Nianji didn't want to say too much. She turned sideways and half covered herself with the blanket. Her back was facing Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiao, you should go. I have my graduation thesis defense this Saturday, and I will graduate after that. Before that, I hope you won't come looking for me again. I know what I'm doing and I'll be fine. You're very sure? Huo Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji's back with her back to him thoughtfully. Her curves were graceful and alluring, but it seemed like they were separated by mountains and rivers. Gu Nianji didn't say anything and only responded with a long silence. Huo Xiaoheng didn't know whether he should believe Gu Nianji or not. But regardless, he was used to being in control of the overall situation. Even the independence and freedom that Gu Nianji wanted had to be within his sight and not out of his control. Since you don't want to say it, I won't force you. Huo Xiaoheng stood up. Then we can only do our own things and not interfere with each other. Huo Xiaoheng left Gu Nianji's apartment after he finished speaking. He didn't stay for a moment. He came and left in the dark. The people from the Ishihara family who were watching Gu Nianji didn't realize that someone was coming and going as he pleased under their noses. After returning to his headquarters, Huo Xiaoheng called Zhao Liangzi to his office overnight. Zhao Liangzi had just fallen asleep and was woken up in the middle of the night. His mind was still groggy and he yawned as he walked in. Huo Xiao, what happened? Zhao Liangzi sat down across from Huo Xiaoheng. Everything had been normal when he left the central control room. Could something big have happened in less than an hour? Zhao Liangzi looked at Huo Xiaoheng in confusion. Huo Xiaoheng didn't know where to start. Holding the mouse in his hand, he flipped through a poker game on the computer. After a while, he finally said, Is there a program that can monitor Nianji 24 hours a day? Zhao Liangzi shivered, and his sleepiness instantly disappeared. He shook his head and asked blankly, Huo Xiao, what did you say? Monitor who 24 hours a day? Huo Xiaoheng looked at him calmly. Gu Nianji, didn't you hear me? Why do we have to monitor Nianji 24 hours a day? Zhao Liangzi jumped up. I object. This little girl has no privacy. Huashao, don't go overboard. She's not a lab rat. You can't do this to her. Huashao didn't expect Zhao Liangzi to be even more agitated than his actual boyfriend and husband. He looked at him calmly. I haven't finished speaking. What are you so anxious about? Hurry up and sit down. His voice wasn't loud, but his tone was solemn. As soon as he said it, Zhao Liangzi wilted and sat down grumbling. He frowned and said, Please make it clear. You said it yourself that there will be surveillance 24 hours a day. I'm not deaf. I know you're not deaf. Huashao looked away. I said surveillance 24 hours a day because I was asking you if it was technically feasible. We can only talk about other things if it's technically feasible. Of course we don't need surveillance 24 hours a day. But I want the ability to choose the time and location of surveillance at any time. Can that be done? Zhao Liangzi breathed a sigh of relief and rubbed his still dizzy head. He said listlessly, Of course it's technically feasible. Nianji also has our special diamond earrings to wear in her ears, so it's completely possible to selectively monitor her at any time. That's good. Huashao was silent for a long time. He turned on the computer and started the program that connected Gu Nianji's diamond earrings to the big screen in the office. This is Nianji's positioning system. Create an algorithm for me and connect it to the public surveillance system throughout the city. For the next week, every public place Gu Nianji appears in will have at least 4 cameras covering her from all 4 directions. Yes, Chief. Zhao Liangzi stood straight and accepted the order. Activate an idle satellite to cover the public places Gu Nianji appears in from above. All the demons and monsters that appear around her will have nowhere to hide in the following week. Huashao raised his head and looked at Zhao Liangzi sternly. Can you do it? Yes, Chief. Zhao Liangzi answered loudly to show his determination. In fact, only the initial algorithm was more troublesome. The subsequent camera coverage and the satellite's aerial view were all a piece of cake. Zhao Liangzi was an expert hacker and computer technician. He was also obsessed with algorithms. He thought of several ideas in an instant when Huashao made the request, but he still needed to verify which was the optimal algorithm. Zhao Liangzi perked up and left Huashao's office. He returned to the central control room on the 6th floor and began to write the algorithm program. He entered several algorithms he had already thought of into the computer, then entered the model of Gu Nianji's positioning device and the coordinates of the public surveillance cameras throughout the city. He wanted to see which algorithm produced the fastest and most comprehensive results. This kind of algorithm was actually similar to Excel's VLOOKUP. It was a constantly changing variable that continuously extracted data from a fixed database according to fixed conditions. Each time, it extracted data from at least 4 different directions. When dawn came, Zhao Liangzi finally came up with the most efficient algorithm and sent it to Huashao. Huashao would do the final test. Huashao didn't sleep the whole night again. When it was almost dawn, he lay on his desk and closed his eyes for a while. He woke up as soon as the computer beeped. He looked closely and saw that it was Zhao Liangzi who had sent his algorithm over. Huashao quickly turned on the computer and tested Zhao Liangzi's algorithm. He was still somewhat dissatisfied with the results, so in the end he personally modified it and sent it back to Zhao Liangzi for him to cross-review. Zhao Liangzi ran Huashao's modified algorithm program and almost knelt down. It was 10 times faster than his previous algorithm program. The CPU usage saved simply increased geometrically. With this algorithm program, Gu Nianji really had no privacy when she went out. Zhao Liangzi smiled as he lit the candle for Gu Nianji and sent Huashao the cross-reviewed program. Huashao, I'll give you the best kiss. He vulgarly added a flaming red lips at the end. Huashao ignored his nonsense and quickly received the algorithm program and immediately began to use it. The big screen in the office lit up and showed Gu Nianji's figure. She was wearing a handsome Moncler short sapphire blue down jacket, blue straight-leg jeans and white sneakers. Her beautiful figure was like a Victoria's Angels supermodel. In the thick winter morning she was as fresh as the blue sky above. Huashao sat behind his desk and watched Gu Nianji's pretty and bright little face appear on the big screen in front of him. His well-defined lips couldn't help curling up. At that moment he saw 2 men who looked like pedestrians appear on Gu Nianji's left and right. They were holding their phones and walking with their heads down. They seemed to be passers-by. Huashao frowned and kept adjusting the camera angle on the computer with one hand. Finally he saw the 2 men's movements clearly. They were monitoring Gu Nianji's whereabouts. Gu Nianji wasn't completely clueless. Huashao clearly saw her quickly glance in the direction of the 2 men, then get into her bright red sports car as if nothing had happened and drive away. The high-definition camera brought an extremely clear visual experience, but Hua Xiaoheng clenched his fists tightly. This girl was playing with fire. This is the first chapter of 3,700 words. It's a new month. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Monthly votes and 1,500 chapters at 1 p.m. Third chapter at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Yunhan Yuqin, Enigma Angxi, IAI Tang, and I am Master Rashi for the 10,000 Chidian coins each yesterday. Congratulations to Yunhan Yuqin for becoming the 20th leader of Hello, Major General. Of course there will be more chapters to celebrate. Don't worry, leader. I've written it all down in my notebook. Chapter 946. Gu Nianji drove her custom-made Ferrari and sped away from the Hipingli precinct towards the B University campus. She had familiarized herself with this road after driving for a week because it was too short. If there were no traffic jams, she could reach the campus in 10 minutes. It was only past 7 in the morning, so there weren't many cars and pedestrians on the road. However, Gu Nianji didn't take her usual route today. Instead, she drove onto the highway. At this time, most of the vehicles on the highway were 18-wheeler trucks. Most of them were fuel trucks and there were very few private cars. Gu Nianji circled the highway before getting off. As expected, the car following her messed up and almost lost her a few times. However, Gu Nianji's intention wasn't to lose them. Therefore, when she slowed down, the bright red Ferrari was easily recognizable, and the people behind her caught up again. Gu Nianji quickly got off the highway and entered the school gates to begin the day's exams. For the next 3 days her whereabouts didn't change. She maintained the same frequency. Friday was the last day of written exams, and Saturday at 8 in the morning would be the time for her graduation thesis defense. On Friday night, Ishihara Taro sat in the study of his apartment in the third ring road of the imperial capital and conducted his last calculations. 4 large screens were lined up in front of him, and they were filled with densely packed formulas and numbers. Ishihara Wakashi walked in slowly and stood in front of his desk with the support of his walking stick. He asked him with a serious expression, "Is everything ready?" Ishihara Taro didn't even look up from the computer and only replied, "Hey grandfather, please take a seat. I'll talk to you after I'm done with the last part of the calculations. You do what you need to do. Don't mind me." Ishihara Wakashi raised his hand. He didn't sit down but stood in front of a family photo in Ishihara Taro's study, lost in thought. There were 5 people in the photo. Ishihara Wakashi, Ishihara Wakashi's wife, and their son Ishihara Baisan. Their daughter-in-law was also holding a small baby in her arms. It was Ishihara Taro. It was originally a harmonious family of 5, but now only the grandfather and grandson remained. Ishihara Wakashi looked at the photo and said in a low voice, "Taro, you must avenge your father. The entire Gu family deserves to die." "Hey." Ishihara Taro thought of his father, who had committed seppuku, and his heart tightened. The mouse in his hand was almost imprinted with 5 fingerprints. "Although your father can't compare to Gu Xiangguan, it doesn't matter. Gu Xiangguan has only lived for more than 10 years. Ishihara Wakashi laughed coldly. "And his daughter. In short, no one from the Gu family can be left alive." "Hey." Ishihara Taro finally finished his last calculation. Ishihara Taro heaved a sigh of relief as he looked at the combination of the best route and random events that appeared on the screen. An arrogant smile appeared on his handsome face. "Grandfather, I can guarantee that Gu Nianji will die a horrible death in front of us this time." Ishihara Taro clicked the mouse and closed the program and computer before raising his head. Ishihara Wakashi suddenly turned around, a fanatical expression on his face. "Can you guarantee it?" "Absolutely." Ishihara Taro clapped his hands and stood up. "Grandfather, I won't let Gu Nianji have the chance to do her graduation thesis defense either. She'll never get her master's degree. Never." He wanted to surpass Gu Nianji in all aspects, including but not limited to education, grades, degrees, and prestigious schools. Ishihara Wakashi nodded vigorously. "Good. But remember to keep your hands clean. Don't attract the attention of the Wuxia Empire's Special Operations Forces. Although Gu Nianji broke up with Hua Xiaoheng, they will still protect her within the Wuxia Empire. Have you considered this?" "Of course." Ishihara Taro nodded. "The elites of the Tokyo Secret Service gave us a lot of information. Hua Xiaoheng does have people protecting Gu Nianji in secret, but so what?" He spread his hands. "Won't I still watch her die? Ishihara Wakashi seemed to see Gunyenji die a horrible death in front of him. He couldn't help licking his cracked lips and said regretfully, "Unfortunately, I can't see it with my own eyes. I'll take a video. Grandfather can enjoy it when the time comes." Ishihara Taro smiled and snapped his fingers. He looked very satisfied. Ishihara Wakashi laughed loudly. "Then remember to finish it quickly. I'll wait for you at the airport. Come meet me at the airport after you're done taking the video." After they killed Gunyenji, they had to leave the Wuxia Empire immediately. No one knew how the other party would take revenge on them, so it was better to be careful. Although Ishihara Taro was sure that the other party couldn't produce legal evidence to sue him, what if the other party didn't play by the rules and didn't use legal means? If he really angered He Xiaoheng in their territory, they could kill him as easily as crushing an ant. He wasn't worried at all that the other party would use non-legal means to deal with him when he killed those people before. But if he killed Gunyenji, the situation would be different. Ishihara Taro instinctively felt that this was the last job he would do in the Wuxia Empire. Otherwise he would probably lose his life there. The weather was not good on Saturday morning. The clouds were dark and thick and it looked like it was going to snow. But it couldn't fall. The layers of dark clouds seemed to be hanging over people's heads. Gunyenji woke up at 5 to prepare for her thesis defense at 8 in the morning. She knew that there would be a tough battle to fight today. After washing up and eating breakfast as usual, Gunyenji sat in front of the dressing table and carefully tied her seaweed-like hair into a bun. Then she put on sunglasses, a scarf and a mask. She tied thick pads on her knees and wrists. She carried her school bag and left the Hipingli apartment in full gear. When the elevator went down to the basement parking lot, a few men looked at her and whistled. Gunyenji pretended not to hear them and walked to her bright red sports car as if no one was around. She opened the door and got in. The car lights flashed twice in the dark garage. The two men in front of her instinctively raised their arms to shield their eyes. Gunyenji curled her lips slightly and slammed on the accelerator. The custom-made Ferrari sports car with excellent performance flew forward like lightning. In the underground garage, he followed the winding path to the surface. Gunyenji squinted her eyes. Her eyes behind the sunglasses were full of excitement. Both her hands were on the steering wheel and she was almost trembling. She drove the car out of the Hipingli apartment complex and came to the small road in front of the entrance. Ishihara Taro, who had been waiting there for a long time, was sitting in a black Mercedes-Benz on the side of the road. Through the dark-tinted windows, Ishihara Taro could only feel the red sports car whizzing past him like the wind. He looked at the direction in which the sports car had disappeared and nodded. He lowered his voice and said, "Follow it. This is the second monthly vote of 1,500 plus chapters delivered. It's a new month. I'm looking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. The third chapter at 7 p.m. P.S. Congratulations to _Singh for becoming the 21st leader of Hello Major General. Of course there will be more chapters to celebrate. Don't worry, leader. I've written it all down in my notebook. The notebook is getting thicker and thicker." Chapter 947. Gunyenji's custom-made red Ferrari was like a beautiful scenery in the dark winter morning. It was still early and the capital was still in a deep sleep. There weren't many cars or pedestrians on the streets. There were only a few breakfast shops that had just opened for business. Gunyenji drove her sports car past the restaurant that she was familiar with. As usual, she stopped to buy breakfast and quickly ate in the car. Ishihara Taro didn't follow behind Gunyenji's car. Instead, he quickly took a shortcut and drove directly to the entrance of the highway. Near the junction at the entrance of the highway was a small long-distance truck parking lot. It was a place where cheap hotels and fast food restaurants gathered. It was specially made for long-distance truck drivers to rest and eat. After they ate and drank their fill, they would drive their 18-wheeler trucks and line up to enter the highway from there. Because most of them were long-distance drivers, almost all of the drivers here were exhausted. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they could only rely on cigarettes, strong tea or black coffee, as well as some drinks that contained illegal drugs to keep them awake. Ishihara Taro's Mercedes-Benz drove in and asked the driver to buy him some fast food while he walked around the area. It wasn't the first time he had been here. It was just that he drove a different car every time, dressed differently and even wore sunglasses. Therefore, no one could recognize that he was the same person. The driver returned with breakfast, and Ishihara Taro followed him into the car. He casually looked at the bag of breakfast and threw it aside. "You wouldn't eat anything here. Let's go." "Get on the highway," Ishihara Taro instructed quietly. The driver stepped on the accelerator and drove out of the service area. They happened to pass by the area where long-distance trucks were parked for repairs. Not far away, an 18-wheeler truck seemed to have a problem with its wheel, and the driver was using a jack to change the wheel. In such a place where long-distance trucks gathered, changing the wheel was a very common sight. A middle-aged woman working in the parking area hurried over with a bucket of water. Ishihara Taro looked at his watch and silently said, "Time's up." He stretched his pale and slender wrist out of the Mercedes-Benz and flicked out a shiny gold coin. The middle-aged woman carrying the bucket only saw a flash of gold light before her eyes. She instinctively took a step back and swung the bucket in front of her. The water in the bucket suddenly poured down, drenching the driver who was changing a tire not far from her. No one would be magnanimous enough to remain indifferent after being doused with a bucket of cold water in winter. The driver's hand slipped, the wrench came loose, and the tire was not fastened so tightly. But he didn't notice it at all. Instead, he raised his arm to wipe the water off his head, turned around and scolded the auntie fiercely, "F***ck your mother. Hurry up and reincarnate. Why the hell are you spraying water so early in the morning? Your man didn't feed you enough last night? You came here to show off." When a long-distance truck driver started scolding someone, it wasn't something an ordinary person could stand. The driver, on the other hand, seemed to have taken the wrong medicine. He was very excited and his eyes were red like a rabbit's. The auntie was so angry that she jumped up and down. She pointed at the driver and cursed. The workers in the maintenance area saw that something was wrong and quickly ran over to maintain order. They tried their best to persuade the driver and the auntie to leave. The driver threw down the wrench, took the jack back and threw it into the car. He wiped his face with a towel and gave the woman the middle finger. Then he got out of the car and slammed the door shut while swearing. He took off his soaked jacket and wrapped it in a coat from the glove compartment in the car. Then he took out a can of banned drugs and drank it all in one gulp. He suddenly felt energized. He slammed on the accelerator, and the 18-wheeler let out a low roar as it rushed out of the long-distance truck resting area and drove towards the fork at the entrance of the highway. He didn't expect that the tire he had just been changing wouldn't be tightened because of the interruption. At that moment, a bright red luxurious sports car sped past his eyes. The driver got excited as soon as he saw the bright red car. He involuntarily stepped on the accelerator and followed it. The black Mercedes-Benz behind the 18-wheeler slowly followed and entered the fork at the entrance of the highway. The bright red luxury sports car in front was naturally Gunyenji's car. As usual, she had eaten breakfast by the roadside before coming over. As soon as she got on the highway, she saw an 18-wheeler driving not far behind her. There was also a black Mercedes-Benz following behind the oil truck. Gunyenji smiled and looked at her watch. It was already 6:30 in the morning. She opened the navigation map in the car and looked at the traffic situation in the imperial capital. She had put in a lot of effort in the battle with Ishihara Taro. From the moment she saw the 18-wheeler, Gunyenji knew that Ishihara Taro had already started the countdown. Then it was also time for her countdown. Gunyenji didn't have the habit of littering. She put on her Bluetooth headset and made a call. "Hello? Is this the main lava volcano cake shop in the Dongqing district? I ordered 11 lava volcano cupcakes with raspberry and vanilla ice cream from you yesterday. Can you send them to Professor Hijichu's place immediately? His number is..." Gunyenji finished quickly and reminded again, "It must be delivered at 7:30. It's best if it's not too early or too late." The set meal of 11 lava volcano cakes with raspberry and vanilla ice cream cost a few hundred yuan each. She had indeed spent a lot of money on 11. But although it was expensive, it was worth it. Gunyenji held the steering wheel and only got on the highway after receiving confirmation from the other party. At 6:30 in the morning, there weren't many cars on the highway. As usual, there were only long-distance trucks at this time. There were a few private cars, but they drove very slowly and didn't compete with the trucks. Gunyenji had to go for her thesis defense, so she had to hurry. Therefore she didn't give way. Instead, she drove faster than the trucks and oil trucks. Ishihara Taro saw this scene from afar and couldn't help but smile. Everything was exactly as he had predicted. In the Dongqing district, the lava volcano cake shop sent a tricycle to the highway to deliver 11 cake sets to B University. Normally, no one would order cake delivery so early at this time. Therefore, when the tricycle suddenly rushed out from the corner, the driver of Ishihara Wakashi's white BMW quickly braked and brushed past the tricycle. He even suspected that his car had been damaged by the tricycle. In a panic, he stepped on the accelerator and chased after it. He shouted at the tricycle driver, "Do you have eyes? Can you afford to compensate me if I damage it?" The delivery boy on the tricycle knew that he did not manage to get a ride on the BMW and was scolded for no reason. He was angry, so he got on the tricycle and stood on the main road. He started to ride slowly, forcing Ishihara Wakashi's BMW to slow down. "I think this brat wants to die." Ishihara Wakashi's driver was also Japanese, but he had lived in the Wuxia Empire for many years. He spoke Mandarin fluently and even had a dialect accent. "Who asked you to be so cocky?" He couldn't wait to step on the accelerator and crush the tricycle under the car. Ishihara Wakashi suppressed his anger and ordered, "Don't be angry with this kind of person. Hurry up and get on the highway to the airport." Originally, they didn't need to go on the highway, but because they were delayed by the tricycle, the driver drove on the nearest highway in a hurry. This ring highway happened to be the highway that Gunyenji and Ishihara Taro were on. Gunyenji's timing was perfect. She even took into account the delay caused by the argument between the two parties. Ishihara Wakashi's BMW had just entered the ring highway when Gunyenji encountered a problem. The 18-wheeler truck not far behind her suddenly started swaying. It drove around on the highway like it had lost control. One moment it was on the white line, the next moment it was on the fast lane. After a while, it made a 180-degree turn and almost crossed the highway, blocking the entire highway. Gunyenji saw that the traffic behind her had almost stopped because of the 18-wheeler truck. She loosened her foot slightly and stopped stepping on the accelerator. At that moment, the 18-wheeler truck finally turned around and didn't cross the line again. However, there was something wrong with the wheels again. As it drove, one of the wheels flew out from under the car and hit the roof of Gunyenji's bright red sports car. Hua Xiaoheng was in his office, nervously watching the surveillance video with Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang. Ever since Gunyenji got in the car and left the Hepingli precinct that morning, they had been paying attention to her movements. When they saw an 18-wheeler truck suddenly deviate from the normal lane on the long highway and begin to move in a disorderly Brownian motion, the three of them suddenly stood up. "What is Nianji doing? Make a call. Hurry up and make a call." Yin Shixiang was the first to shout. Zhao Liangzi looked anxious. He picked up his phone and was about to dial. "Stop." Hua Xiaoheng stopped them. "What time is this? Why are you calling? Have you thought about the consequences of being distracted by Nianji?" "But Nianji..." Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi spoke in unison and pointed at the surveillance video on the big screen. "This doesn't look good." Hua Xiaoheng folded his hands behind his back and sighed quietly. He said slowly, "Wait a little longer. We have people following her." This time, Hua Xiaoheng had mobilized his most elite forces to follow her. They weren't field agents disguised as passers-by. If something went wrong, these people would definitely protect Gunyenji and allow her to escape unscathed. Judging from the current situation on the highway, he was doing the right thing. Hua Xiaoheng raised his hand. Zhao Liangzi and Yin Shixiang sat down reluctantly. They propped their chins on their hands and leaned forward to stare at the big screen nervously. It was as if they were watching a blockbuster, admiring Gunyenji's speed of life and death. Gunyenji gripped the steering wheel tightly. Her sweaty palms soaked her gloves. The 18-wheeler truck finally had an accident. It wasn't a normal accident. It had fallen into a death trap. But she wasn't afraid. She didn't flinch. She sat up straight and continued to maneuver through the gap. The excellent performance of the big red Ferrari was on full display at this moment. She slammed on the accelerator and the sports car let out a low growl. It sped forward and avoided the oil truck that was hot on her tail. Actually, the oil truck wasn't following her on purpose. It was because her sports car was red. The driver knew that there was a problem with the oil truck. He was extremely tired and nervous. He had also drunk a drink that contained illegal drugs. His mind was blank now. He could only subconsciously follow the red target. He was like a bull in a bull ring. He could only recognize the color red. Ishihara Taro had obviously taken this into consideration. He had arranged this death trap based on Gunyenji's car. Gunyenji understood this. She sneered and turned the steering wheel to the side. The big red sports car easily changed lanes. The 18-wheeler truck was missing a wheel. It was long and big. It wasn't easy to change lanes. But the terrifying instinct of an animal made the oil truck driver keep staring at Gunyenji's sports car. He forced himself to change lanes with her. Gunyenji was driving more and more smoothly. She kept moving forward, braking, going around in circles and moving forward. It seemed like a long time had passed, but only less than 10 minutes had passed. The oil truck behind seemed to be unable to hold on. The driver frantically wanted to brake, but how could a car without a wheel stop so easily? Moreover, at this time, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. Although the snow on the ground was quickly crushed by the wheels of the carriage, it gradually accumulated into mud and thin ice on the ground. It was even more difficult to break. Gunyanji continued to drive forward. Her eyes kept glancing to the other side. When she saw the white BMW finally drive over, Gunyanji quietly let go of the brake and slammed on the accelerator. This highway was two-way. There was a thin strip of land in the middle. On the other side of the strip of land was the highway to the east of the city. The university was in the west. Their highway was heading to the west of the city. Gunyanji kept calculating the time in her mind. She stepped on the brakes as well. Her car was getting slower and slower. The big red sports car was getting closer and closer to the oil truck behind. The three people watching the surveillance video on the big screen at the Special Operations Forces headquarters stood up nervously again. This time, even Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but pick up his phone to give orders to his elite team members. At that moment it was like a dream. They saw the big red Ferrari on the big screen suddenly accelerate just as it was about to be rear-ended by the oil truck behind. With a whoosh, it was so fast that it only left an afterimage on their retinas. In the nick of time, they only saw the 18-wheeler oil truck finally slam on the brakes. The whole car once again floated on the highway. With a whoosh, it slammed into the strip of land. The oil tanker without a wheel roared as it rushed up the narrow median, cutting the two-way highway in half. At the same time, a black Mercedes-Benz that had been following the oil truck on this side of the highway and a white BMW speeding over on the other side of the highway crashed into the back of the 18-wheeler oil truck, one in front and one behind, one on the left and one on the right. There was a loud bang. Black smoke rose from the oil truck. Soon a raging fire lit up the entire sky. The rear compartment of the oil tanker exploded one after another. The driver scrambled out from the front of the car, only to see that the two luxury cars that had crashed into the rear compartment of the oil tanker had been instantly burned to the ground by the fire. This is the third chapter, 4,200 words, including the monthly votes of 1,800 plus chapters. It's a new month, so I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. It's better to have a big chapter for this plot, so I happen to have monthly votes to add chapters. I'll add them in advance. Chapter 948. The huge 18-wheeler truck was filled with crude oil. Once it was ignited, flames shot up into the sky and black smoke filled the air. The entire two-way highway was instantly in chaos. Hua Xiaoheng put on his Bluetooth headset and connected to the elite team of the Special Operations Forces on the highway. He asked in a low voice, "Protect the scene. Who were in the black and white cars? Were there any other casualties?" The team leader was in a private car on the road. There were also a few people in large trucks following behind the car that caused the accident. Today's accident was also very sudden. They didn't expect the other party to be so powerful that they could actually use the oil truck as a weapon. Hua Xiao, according to the license plates, the black Mercedes-Benz and white BMW both belonged to the Ishihara Corporation. The team leader quickly found out the owners of the cars. The people in the two cars are all dead. The fire in the oil truck was too fierce. In less than 5 seconds, only the frames of the two cars were left. Other than that, there were no other casualties. The traffic on the highway has already stopped. The traffic police should be here soon. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and looked up at the big screen. The traffic police, fire trucks and ambulances were quickly rushing towards the billowing smoke and raging fire. Leave one of you to secretly observe the scene. The rest of you follow Miss Gu. Hua Xiaoheng paused. What about Miss Gu? His original arrangement was to keep an eye on Gunyanji from all angles. But now, Gunyanji had already disappeared from his big screen for a minute. The team leader immediately said, "We have people following Miss Gu, but the scene is too chaotic at the moment. The surveillance may not be connected yet." Hua Xiaoheng didn't make a sound. He stared coldly at the big screen. Although he didn't say anything, his imposing aura seemed to be able to be transmitted from the phone to the other end. The elite team leader on the other end of the phone suddenly felt a bit creeped out. He quickly contacted his team members. Soon the surveillance on the other end was connected. The shadow of a bright red Ferrari gradually appeared on the big screen in Hua Xiaoheng's office. It was especially eye-catching on the foggy and smoke-filled highway. Gunyanji saw the earth-shattering accident from the rearview mirror. The traffic was already chaotic. There weren't many cars in front of her, and the cars behind were completely blocked by the 18-wheeler oil truck on the two-way highway. Raging flames danced in the air and snowflakes fell from the sky. Gunyanji parked the car on the highway's emergency lane and opened the door to get out. The sapphire blue Moncler short down jacket was very handsome, and the blue straight leg jeans accentuated a pair of straight legs. The spotless white sneakers on his feet formed a strong contrast with the gloomy atmosphere on the highway. She leaned against the door of the bright red Ferrari sports car. She was so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Gu Nianji wore sunglasses. Her skin was snow white, and her face was expressionless as she looked back at the raging fire. This fire actually looked somewhat familiar. When she was 12 years old, she suddenly appeared in the downtown area of Sea City. Didn't her car also burn like this? That car accident had left a serious psychological shadow on her young mind, and she had even lost her memory to this day. But now these things no longer had any influence on her. Xiaoheng was right. The way to conquer fear was not to run away but to face it. Only when you can look directly at the painful past can you truly put the past behind you. At that moment, Gu Nianji only felt that her heart was at ease. It was a kind of self-confidence that had been tested by practice. Relying on herself, she would not lose to anyone. The family background and status that those people valued were nothing in the face of her powerful ability. Xiaoheng's gaze was fixed on Gu Nianji leaning against the door of the bright red Ferrari on the big screen. Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi cheered when they saw Gu Nianji appear on the big screen. After the cheering, Yin Shixiang and Zhao Liangzi became worried. Xiao, Nianji is traumatized by the car accident. Should we? Before they could finish, they felt a sudden gust of wind blow past them. The office door banged loudly, and Xiaoheng's figure had already disappeared. So fast. How dare you say you're not worried? Yin Shixiang laughed strangely and also picked up the car keys. He patted Zhao Liangzi's shoulder. Little Zhe, stay here and wait for orders. I'm going to Nianji's school to check on her. Zhao Liangzi howled. Why do I have to stay here and wait for orders? I'm going to Nianji's school to see her. You stay here. I've been suspended for a month. Yin Shixiang made a serious expression. I can't do any work. Who was so happy to dispatch people just now? Zhao Liangzi kicked him. Remember to bring your phone. I want to see how Nianji is doing. Got it? Yin Shixiang rushed out of Xiaoheng's office door with a smile and chased after him. But Xiaoheng was much faster than him. By the time Yin Shixiang got into his car, Xiaoheng's car was already on the highway. The Special Operations Forces headquarters was on the 3rd Ring Road. Gu Nianji and the others were on the two-way highway on the 4th Ring Road. But it only took Xiaoheng 15 minutes to get to the highway where Gu Nianji was. The entrance and exit of the highway were all blocked. Xiaoheng had no choice but to show his special identification to be allowed in. He drove his silver Bentley SUV and sped all the way until he finally saw Gu Nianji's bright red Ferrari. Gu Nianji stood in front of the car for a while and even took out her phone to record a video. The highway was currently closed. She couldn't get off the highway until the accident scene was cleaned up. But it was still early and there weren't many cars on the highway. It wasn't crowded. Gu Nianji stared at her phone screen and suddenly saw a familiar silver-gray Bentley SUV appear in her camera range. This car was almost exactly the same as Xiao's car. Even the license plate was the same? Gu Nianji didn't expect Xiaoheng to drive over personally at this time. When the silver Bentley SUV also stopped on the highway emergency lane, not far behind her, Gu Nianji suddenly understood. She put away her phone helplessly and turned to get into the car. Xiaoheng had already gotten out of the car. Gu Nianji. A stern voice came from behind Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji's back stiffened. She gripped the car door and didn't know whether to go in or out. Anyway, there was no way to avoid it. She was the final winner, so what was there to be afraid of? Gu Nianji steeled her heart and quickly turned around. Xiaoheng might have come in a hurry, but he was still wearing a dark green tweed military uniform. The belt around his waist tightened his muscular waist, and his long legs were covered with long military boots. The expression on his face was one of rare coldness and seriousness. He adjusted his gloves and walked forward unhurriedly to stand in front of Gu Nianji. Miss Gu, you have indeed impressed me. He turned around and pointed at the scene of the car accident, which was still billowing with smoke and fire. His voice was low and hoarse, but it carried an invisible pressure. But do you know that this is very dangerous? Not only are you putting yourself in danger, but you might also drag innocent people into it. I won't drag innocent people into it. Gu Nianji clenched her fists. She couldn't stand such accusations. I've calculated it all. You've calculated it all? Xiaoheng took advantage of her words and took another step forward, forcing her into the corner of the Ferrari sports car door. How did you calculate it all? Don't tell me you've even included that white BMW in your calculations. Ishihara Taro is in the black Mercedes, but what about the white BMW? Ishihara Wakashi is in that car. Gunyenji shouted without a care and glared at Hua Xiaoheng. Her face was as gorgeous as the burning fire. I said I won't let innocent people get hurt. But I won't let go of someone who has ulterior motives toward me. You said before that the Ishihara family has a feud with me for killing my father. They won't let me go. If that's the case, then don't let them go. I won't let them go either. Gunyenji's forced calmness finally broke down, and she screamed hysterically. Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her, and his heart finally softened. He extended his arms and pulled her into his embrace. His large hands roamed around her back, and his deep voice had a hint of gentleness to soothe her nervousness. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not blaming you. Gunyenji calmed down and gently pushed Hua Xiaoheng away. She whispered, "We're outside. It's not good for people to see you like this." He was still wearing his military uniform. Hua Xiaoheng patted her head and didn't continue. He picked up the previous topic and asked seriously, "The white BMW is Ishihara Wakashi? How did you know?" He didn't even know this information. Was it also calculated by your chaos algorithm? If it was true, then this algorithm was really out of this world. A wave of worry rose in Hua Xiaoheng's heart. Gunyenji tilted her head and snickered. How is that possible? Then I'm not a human. I'm a god. Then how did you know? Hua Xiaoheng sighed softly and relaxed. Gunyenji was a little embarrassed as she put her hands into the pockets of her short down jacket. She lowered her head and rubbed against the pebbles on the emergency pavement on the highway. She whispered, Ishihara Taro has the Ishihara Corporation as his support. He spent a lot of manpower and resources to follow me and investigate the situation around me. That's because only by continuously enriching his database can he make accurate calculations. I can't. Firstly, I don't have the time. Secondly, I don't have the manpower. Because she couldn't let anyone know what she wanted to do, she didn't ask Hua Xiaoheng for help or complain to Hijichu. Hua Xiaoheng snorted. You don't have the manpower? Do you think I'm dead? Gunyenji looked away. I said that I have to rely on myself, so I have to rely on myself. Relying on Hua Xiao isn't relying on myself. Then how did you do it? I didn't follow Ishihara Taro. Instead, I started from the results and deduced his behavior patterns. Speak human language. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her coldly. Don't use your professional jargon with me. Fine. Gunyenji spread her hands and giggled. Speak human language. I hacked into the Ishihara Corporation's computer and discovered that they were planning to retreat from our country to Japan. Moreover, their big secretary has booked 2 first-class tickets for ANA at 9 o'clock this morning. Ishihara Taro was too vigilant. The computer he used for calculations was not connected to the internet, so Gunyenji couldn't hack into his computer directly. And Ishihara Taro's phone was blank. In the end, Gunyenji had no choice but to hack into the Ishihara Corporation's official website and enter their back-end program. She knew very well that if Ishihara Taro's ultimate goal was to kill her, then the first thing he would do after they succeeded would be to escape the Huaxia Empire in time and return to Japan. Then I went to ANA's ticket booking website and, as expected, found Ishihara Wakashi and Ishihara Taro's names. Only then did I know that Ishihara Wakashi was going to leave as well. When she confirmed that Ishihara Wakashi was also in the capital and would leave at the same time as Ishihara Taro, her plan changed at the last minute and she added an additional variable. Because she had a target in mind and knew that some situations would definitely occur, the calculations she had to make were actually much less than Ishihara Taro's, but also much more accurate. Then you used Ishihara Taro's plan to lure them in? Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms, still disapproving. What if the oil truck didn't go wrong as you planned? You took too much of a risk. That's not for me to decide. Gunyenji shrugged and pointed at the scene of the car accident. If Ishihara Taro hadn't made such a crazy plan to deal with me, believe me, he definitely wouldn't have died today. I never wanted to kill anyone unless they wanted to kill me and I was defending myself. And today's big scene is the funeral they prepared for themselves. How is it? It's spectacular, isn't it? This is the first 3,700-word update. It's a new month, so I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There are only 2 updates today and 3 updates tomorrow. The second update will be at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Sing_Sing and Heaven's Beggar for the 10,000 Chidian coins each yesterday. Chapter 949. Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji looked at the burning tanker together. Professional firefighters had already started extinguishing the fire, and the driver of the tanker was taken to the side of the road for questioning. He was completely shocked and no longer had the vigor he had when arguing with the Andy that morning. He wiped his tears and said, "Mr. Police, I really don't know what happened. I was driving just fine and suddenly there was a problem. I took a look just now and it seemed to be missing a wheel. The ground was slippery so I really had no choice." Several traffic police stood to the side and recorded the cause of the accident. The two cars that had been burned to the ground became the focus of the inspection. Gu Nianji looked at her watch. "It's already 7:30. I have my thesis at 8. Hua Xiaoheng turned on his Bluetooth headset and said a few words to his people before saying to Gu Nianji, "Let's go, I'll take you down." He walked back to his car and started the engine to lead the way. Gu Nianji then got into her own car and followed behind Hua Xiaoheng's car as they drove down the highway. Hua Xiaoheng had a special ID so he had no obstructions along the way. He quickly got off the highway and drove to the entrance of B University. On the way, he received several calls regarding the investigation results of the Ishihara Corporation. Later, he received a call from Yin Shixiang saying that he was already at Gu Nianji's dorm and asked when Hua Xiao would be coming over. Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to see Yin Shixiang's face. He had been single for so many years and now that he suddenly had a girlfriend he felt like he had lost weight. Hua Xiaoheng stopped at the entrance of B University and didn't follow them in. He called Gu Nianji. "Do your thesis well and call me when you're done." Gu Nianji stopped the car and asked, "Hua Xiao, do you need something?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "The results of the investigation are out. I'll go back to take a look." Gu Nianji agreed and anxiously drove in alone. He Jichu had been waiting in the small conference room for the thesis for almost half an hour. The lava volcano cake set that Gu Nianji had ordered was on the table, but she hadn't arrived yet. The thesis would be in half an hour so He Jichu couldn't help but call Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji's car had just arrived at her dorm. She picked up He Jichu's call and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll be there soon. I just arrived at the dormitory. Wait for me to pack my things." He Jichu was finally relieved. He turned on the wall TV in the small conference room as a backdrop. This was the time of the morning news and all the channels on the TV were broadcasting the same breaking news. At around 7 o'clock this morning, there was a car accident on the 4th Ring Expressway. The fuel tanker was hit by two cars on the expressway from the east and west respectively and caught on fire. Apart from the fact that all the people in the vehicle were killed on the spot, there were no other casualties. The cause of the accident is still under investigation. The insurance company and the police have arrived at the scene to deal with the matter. He Jichu sat behind the long conference table in the small conference room and casually glanced at the TV. Black smoke covered half of the sky from the burning oil tanker. In such a scene, a bright red Ferrari sports car stood out. He Jichu was just about to look away when he saw the familiar Ferrari sports car. The corners of his eyes twitched. This wasn't Gu Nianji's car? The camera flickered, and he seemed to see the slim and graceful figure standing in front of the bright red Ferrari sports car. It seemed to be Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji returned to her dorm. As soon as she opened the door she saw Yin Shixiang pointing his phone at her and shouting, "Little Zay, did you see that?" Nianji just opened the door and came in. Ma Chichi also rushed over and grabbed Gu Nianji's hand. "Nianji, are you okay? What Big Xiong said just now scared me. I always said he was exaggerating." "I'm fine. Brother Xiong just likes to exaggerate." Gu Nianji shielded her face with her hand and smiled. "Brother Xiong, what are you doing?" "I'm broadcasting live." Yin Shixiang looked up at her with a smile and said to the phone, "Little Zay, do you want to talk to Nianji?" Gu Nianji walked over and looked in front of him. "Brother Zay?" Gu Nianji waved at the phone in surprise. "Long time no see." Zhao Liangzi carefully looked at Gu Nianji and saw that she was wearing a short sapphire blue down jacket. It wasn't bloated like a down jacket and looked very handsome. "Nianji, are you okay?" Zhao Liangzi greeted her. "We all saw the car accident this morning. The three of us were so scared we almost jumped out." Gu Nianji smiled and shook her head. "I'm fine. Sorry to make you guys worry." Yin Shixiang ran to the door and poked his head out to look. "Nianji, where's Hua Xiao?" Gu Nianji shook her head. "He left. Do you have any misunderstandings about Hua Xiao being a workaholic?" "Oh? He went back." Yin Shixiang scratched his head and awkwardly tried to save Hua Xiaoheng. "It's almost the end of the year. He's really busy." Ma Chichi tugged at Yin Shixiang to stop him from talking. Gu Nianji smiled and went into her room to change out of her jeans and into a light gray wool suit. She came out and said, I'm going to my thesis defense. It's starting in 10 minutes. What about you guys? In Shixiang immediately said, you go defend. I don't understand your thesis anyway. I'll wait for you here. He even winked at her as he spoke. Gu Nianji knew he wanted to spend more time with Ma Qiqi. She smiled and nodded. She put her hand on Ma Qiqi's shoulder. Qiqi, you have to treat Brother Xiong well for me. I'll be going now. Ma Qiqi quickly said, Nianji, I want to go with you. I want to hear your thesis defense. No need. I'll be so nervous if you go. Gu Nianji smiled as she pushed her back. She grabbed her laptop bag and left the dorm alone to rush to the small conference room where the thesis defense would be held. She received a call from He Zhichu on the way. Gu Nianji smiled. Professor He, I'm already here. I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute. He Zhichu suppressed his anger. Nianji, did you get into a car accident this morning? Gu Nianji was speechless. No. Why do you ask? Gu Nianji decided to play dumb with He Zhichu. He might not know what Hua Xiaoheng knew anyway. I watched TV. He Zhichu enunciated each word carefully. Are you okay? Did you get a fright? Gu Nianji's lips twitched in amusement. Professor He, I'm fine. I was driving over, but the driver of the fuel truck was probably tired. One of his wheels flew off and hit my car. He Zhichu frowned nervously. Are you really okay? If you're not feeling well, we can reschedule the thesis defense. I'm fine. My driving skills are top-notch. I'm comparable to a Formula F4 driver. Even if I don't say I'm good at it, I'm good at it. Gu Nianji spoke enthusiastically. She didn't show any signs of stress trauma. She didn't seem to be traumatized at all. He Zhichu was relieved to see that she was fine. He didn't want to hear her brag, so he hung up. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She had managed to fool He Zhichu. But how could she have known that the two sedan cars that crashed into the oil tanker on the TV belonged to Japan's Ishihara Corporation? He Zhichu was no stranger to the Ishihara Corporation. Ishihara Taro, who had just transferred from Japan, was the heir to the corporation. He thought about it and temporarily turned off the TV to avoid affecting Gu Nianji's thesis defense. The professors who were preparing for the thesis defense walked in one after another. They were all chatting about the car accident on the highway that day. A professor said, I just came from the faculty. They just received a call from the police asking if Ishihara Taro was a student from our faculty. Turns out he was one of the victims in the car accident. Ishihara Taro? He Zhichu remembered that the TV said that the two cars belonged to the Ishihara Corporation, so he didn't find it strange anymore. Yet tsk. What a pity. The Ishihara family has only had one son for 3 generations. He'll be the last. So be it. A female professor snickered. Serves him right. The Ishihara family isn't some prestigious family. Don't think we'll forget their war crimes just because they invested some money in our country. Let's not talk about it anymore. The male professor who expressed his pity had studied in Japan before. He didn't want to hear such words and began to smooth things over. He Zhichu pretended not to hear the two of them arguing. He only said, Classmate Gu will be here soon. This is the volcano cake combo that she prepared for everyone. Please help yourselves. As he spoke, Gu Nianji pushed the door open and came in. She bowed to all the professors. Hello everyone. I'm Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji's thesis defense was proceeding nervously. Hua Xiaoheng was also in a meeting. Once Ishihara Taro and Ishihara Wakashi were dead, Hua Xiaoheng predicted that the Ishihara Corporation would be in chaos once the news reached Japan. He was listening to the reports from the field personnel. Hua Xiao, we finally found out that the Ishihara Corporation and the Angel in the World Foundation are indeed in contact. This is the second update. It's a new month. I'm begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There are only 2 updates today and 3 updates tomorrow. Chapter 950. Do you have concrete evidence? Hua Xiaoheng sat behind his desk and checked the emails from the other party on his computer while communicating with them in real time. We're still looking for direct evidence, but the American lawyer recently revealed during the lawsuit that the Angel in the World Fund had supported a research project at the Tokyo Imperial College of Medicine in Japan 2 years ago. That project was led by Professor Oda Masao, but then Professor Oda Masao suddenly passed away, and the project was stopped. Hua Xiaoheng paused, his eyes narrowing. Oda Masao? He was practically their old friend? Yes, it's this professor's project. We discovered that the Ishihara Corporation commissioned him to do the research. Entrustment? It's probably a collaborative research project. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. The Ishihara Corporation is not a simple business organization. I suspect that they are still doing what they used to do. Hua Xiao means? The Japanese field agent on the other side listened very carefully for fear of missing important instructions. Hua Xiaoheng raised his head and looked at the monitor. He said sternly, "What did Ishihara Shiro do back then? Have you all forgotten?" Ishihara Shiro, the highest commander of Japan's infamous numerical unit, was the one who took the initiative to propose to the United States that they use the research results they obtained from human experiments on the Huaxia people to secretly exchange for the right to not be tried after the war. Ishihara Shiro happened to be the founder of the Ishihara Corporation, Ishihara Wakashi's father, and Ishihara Taro's great-grandfather. Yes, Hua Xiao. We will follow up on this lead. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it and instructed them, the Ishihara Corporation will probably be in chaos soon. Remember to make the situation as chaotic as possible. This way he could find out more secrets. The Japanese field personnel were very surprised. Chaos? Really? This corporation is very secretive, so our progress in finding information is very slow. If I can create chaos, then the heavens are really helping me. Hua Xiaoheng smirked and grunted, yes. You guys get ready. Not only will you set the pace, but we will also set the pace on your home ground. Giving others a taste of their own medicine was the wisdom of the Chinese ancestors. 2 hours passed and Gu Nianji's defense was nearing its end. The topic of her thesis was about the scope of application of inheritance law. He Zhichu had also helped her choose this topic to lighten her learning load. Gu Nianji had already looked up a lot of relevant legal knowledge and case histories because she was competing with Gu Yanran for the Gu inheritance. It was indeed a piece of cake to use the materials and cases that she had used in her lawsuit to write this master's thesis. Therefore, Gu Nianji was very well prepared. She wasn't like the graduation thesis of a typical master's student, who was still an armchair strategist in the academic field. Gu Nianji, on the other hand, had already used this set of theories to guide practice and had competed with others in court. Therefore, her graduation defense went very smoothly. The professor who listened to her defense praised her greatly. He even said that her method was ingenious and her thinking was flexible. He said that she could be used as a model for the graduation thesis of B University's Master of Law students in the future. Gu Nianji was very excited, but she still controlled her emotions and very politely thanked the professors for their high praise. After the defense, the professors stood up and shook hands with her one by one before leaving the small conference room. Only He Zhichu and Gu Nianji remained. He Zhichu wore a gray suit and walked elegantly to Gu Nianji's side. He bowed. Nianji, congratulations. You finally graduated. Gu Nianji sat in her seat with a dreamy expression on her face. She said slowly, Professor He, I really can't believe that I've graduated. She didn't have such a strong feeling when she graduated. Perhaps it was because she knew at that time that she would continue her graduate studies, so she didn't have the self-awareness to graduate and leave school. But this time was different. She didn't plan to continue her PhD studies. Graduating with a master's meant that her ivory tower career was over. From now on, she would enter society and use her own skills and abilities to pursue her own world like many others. He Zhichu couldn't help but pat her head. His cool voice had a hint of gentleness. Yes, you've graduated. Go work in the United States. Gu Nianji was his assistant and also an official employee of the largest law firm in the United States. He Zhichu paused before saying, I'm going to the United States too. The PhD students here will graduate in 6 months. I'll resign from my position as a professor at the B University Faculty of Law. Gu Nianji's eyes widened in shock. But Professor He, they all like you very much. They like attending your classes. He Zhichu was speechless. He didn't want the students to like him. He only wanted her to like him. I'll teach them until they graduate. He Zhichu changed the topic without batting an eyelid. If you don't want to start working right away, you can take a break for 6 months. Gu Nianji shook her head. I want to work, but I don't want to work in the United States. Professor He, it's too early to talk about this. I haven't recovered yet. I'll think about where I want to work after the Lunar New Year. He Zhichu didn't force her. Yes, it's fine if you don't want to go to the United States. I have a law firm here too. Come, I'll let you be a partner. Gu Nianji was speechless. If she became a partner as soon as she graduated, even if she had the ability, people would always stick the He Zhichu label on her. Gu Nianji had struggled to break free from Hua Xiaoheng's wings. She didn't want to immediately be labeled as someone else's. Professor He, I want to make some achievements first before bringing my clients to join your law firm. What do you think? Gu Nianji replied tactfully as she stood up from her seat. Ijichu understood what she meant immediately. He smiled. You care about other people's opinions? I don't care about other people's opinions. I just don't want to bury my talents. Gu Nianji confidently put on her backpack and picked up her laptop bag. Professor He, can you let me try it out on my own first? It's not that I'm not letting you try it, but why do you have to take so many detours? You'll eventually become my partner anyway. Since it's a matter of time, it's better to do it sooner than later. Ijichu teased Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji giggled and shook her head. That's different. Let's look at it from another perspective. Detours are actually experience. If you don't take detours, you won't have experience. In this line of work, the most important thing is to be able to convince people. If people don't trust my abilities, why would they ask me to be their lawyer? Besides, it's not like I'm inferior to others. Why can't you just let me go and try it out on my own? Hijichu looked at her intently. His expression softened. Gu Nianji also knew that Hijichu was doing this for her own good. However, like Hu Xiaoheng, he always believed that she couldn't handle things on her own. Professor He, thank you for your suggestion. Your suggestion gives me more courage to go out and work. I won't be afraid of failure because I know that you won't despise me, right? Gu Nianji now knew how to express her thoughts in a roundabout way. She could also express her thoughts in a way that didn't hurt others. Hijichu's mood improved as expected. He picked up his briefcase and walked out of the small conference room with Gu Nianji. He said dryly, "Oh? You clearly rejected my suggestion. How did that give you more courage?" Because I know that you'll be my strong support. That's why I have the courage to charge forward. Gu Nianji waved her arm and smiled at Hijichu. Hijichu was greatly pleased by this statement. The corners of his lips involuntarily curved into a happy smile. When he returned to his suite in the professor's building and went to the bathroom to wash his hands, he realized that he still had a faint smile on his face. No wonder his cheeks were a little sore. Hijichu's lips smoothed out. Coming out of the bathroom, he called Gu Nianji. Nianji, you're on vacation after exams today. Can I treat you to dinner? Gu Nianji had just arrived at the dorm and was telling Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang about the interesting things that happened during her thesis defense. Hearing her phone ring, Gu Nianji picked it up and said to Hijichu, Professor He, I'm about to treat someone to dinner. You're coming too? Sure, where? Hijichu looked at his schedule. Today was purposely free. After celebrating with Gu Nianji, he had to return to the United States. Gu Nianji told him the location and said to Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang, You guys come too. I've booked a private room. You can hang out for the entire afternoon and night. After 2 meals they could sing karaoke, play mahjong and play poker. It was all entertainment and dining. Yin Shixiang laughed. Sure, but it's just the few of us. Why don't you invite a few more? Gu Nianji blinked and remembered that Hu Xiaoheng had told her to call him after her thesis defense. However, after being scolded by Hu Xiaoheng on the highway, Gu Nianji was a little afraid of him. Yin Shixiang made a face at Gu Nianji. Nianji, you're not that petty, are you? Gu Nianji could only laugh. I also want to invite a few more people, but it's the holidays now. The students are either going home or working. I can't gather that many people in such a short time. How about Brother Xiong help me ask Hu Xiao and Brother Zhe if they're free? Yesterday was Friday, the last day of B University's final exams. Winter break would begin after the exams. Today was Saturday, but because Gu Nianji had advanced her graduation thesis defense, it was moved to today. As for the graduation ceremony, it would have to wait for the normal batch of students to graduate during the summer break. B University's graduation ceremony was only held once a year. Yin Shixiang cracked his knuckles. Sure, I'll ask for you. He walked to the balcony to call Hu Xiaoheng and Zhao Liangzi. Of course, Zhao Liangzi was delighted and asked a colleague to cover for him for a few hours before driving over himself. When he arrived at the restaurant where Gu Nianji and the others had agreed to meet, Zhao Liangzi actually ran into Bai Shuang and Bai Yueran. They had come over for lunch and heard that Gu Nianji had graduated early today. They smiled and wanted to celebrate with her. Zhao Liangzi couldn't make the decision, so he smiled. Then I'll ask. If there are too many people, then there's nothing I can do. It's fine, we're just going to say hello. Bai Shuang only wanted to find an opportunity to spend more time with Zhao Liangzi, so she was very enthusiastic. Zhao Liangzi led them inside. Gu Nianji booked a rather large private room, but there weren't many people. Bai Yueran scanned the room and was slightly relieved to see that they were all people she knew. She walked over to greet them one by one. Lawyer He, nice to meet you. Big Xiong, are you slacking off? Bai Yueran smiled and shook Ma Qiqi's hand. You're Qiqi? I've seen you before. Gu Nianji saw that it was Bai Shuang and Bai Yueran, so she winked at Zhao Liangzi and invited them with a smile. Miss Bays, if you have time, would you like to come and play together? Bai Yueran looked at Bai Shuang and said, I can stay for 3 hours and then go back to the base. What about you? Bai Shuang smiled. I'm fine. If Miss Gu doesn't mind, I can join in the fun. Of course, Gu Nianji didn't mind. She had a good impression of these two people, and she had heard from Yin Shixiang that Zhao Liangzi was pursuing Bai Yueran and that Bai Shuang liked Zhao Liangzi. Gu Nianji loved to read about this kind of love triangle gossip. How could she miss it when she had the chance to see it in real life? Besides, it just so happened that she had graduated today, so she was relaxed and much livelier than usual. Bai Yueran and Bai Shuang stayed and had lunch together. However, Hua Xiaoheng was in a meeting and couldn't answer the phone. By the time he finished the meeting and found out that Yin Shixiang had called him, 2 hours had passed. He called. Big Xiong? What's up? Yin Shixiang quickly said, Hua Xiao, come over quickly. I've already saved food for you. You can't be absent from Nianji's graduation celebration, right? This was the first update, 3,600 words. Today was the third update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today was Monday, so recommendation votes were very important. Dear friends, don't forget. At 1:00 p.m., the first update for the spiritual pet fate, 100,000 Chidian dollars, awarded to the leader of the alliance, I am Master Rashi, for June. At 7:00 p.m., the third update. Chapter 951. When Hua Xiaoheng heard that it was Gu Nianji's graduation celebration, he paused and looked at his watch. It was already 1 in the afternoon. Where are you? Hua Xiaoheng began to pack his things and prepared to leave. He had purposely left the second half of the day free because he wanted to celebrate Gu Nianji's graduation thesis defense. However, Gu Nianji didn't call him after the defense was over. As Hua Xiaoheng walked out, he used his Bluetooth headset to call Gu Nianji. Whose past did the Priestess Temple Expedition Bow and Arrow belong to? I like the image of you belonging to me in the crowd. Gu Nianji's phone rang. This was Hua Xiaoheng's exclusive ringtone. She subconsciously answered the call and said to the person in the room, I'm going out to take a call. She hurriedly walked out and stood on the walkway. She whispered, Hua Xiao. Is the defense over? Yes, Hua Xiao, why didn't you call me? Hua Xiaoheng asked unhappily. You promised me. Gu Nianji leaned against the wall of the walkway awkwardly and looked at the dark blue passion flower decal on the opposite wall. She mumbled, I asked Brother Xiong to call for me. Alright, I'll let it go this time. Don't let it happen again. Hua Xiaoheng walked out of the elevator and went to the underground parking lot to get his car. I'll be right there. Gu Nianji mustered up her courage and said, Hua Xiao, Director Bai and her cousin are also here as well as Professor He. Today is only a graduation celebration. Let's not talk about anything else. Hua Xiaoheng stopped in his tracks and took out a cigarette from his pocket. He clasped his hands together and lit it. After a while he finally said, Yeah. Hua Xiaoheng hung up the phone, opened the car door and got in. After taking a few puffs of his cigarette, he threw it into the nearby trash can and drove out of the parking lot. Holding her phone, Gu Nianji stood quietly in the aisle for a while before returning to the private room. He Jichu handed her a glass of juice. What's wrong? It's fine. Gu Nianji smiled as she put her phone back into her bag. She looked up to see Bai Yueran walking over. Nianji, thank you for your hospitality today. I still have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. Congratulations on graduating early, our genius girl. Bai Yueran leaned over and hugged her. Gu Nianji hugged her back. Thank you, Director Bai. You're welcome. I'll make it up to you when we get back. Bai Yueran patted her shoulder with a smile. We'll have a chance to work together in the future. Director Bai, you're welcome. Gu Nianji quickly said, If you need my help, just let me know. There's no need for gifts. How can we do that? We watched you grow up. Bai Yueran winked at her with a smile, then waved at the people in the private room. You guys enjoy yourselves. I'll be leaving first. Zhao Liangzi walked her out. Yueran, it's Saturday today. Are you working overtime? Bai Yueran walked out with him and adjusted the straps of her bag. She said softly, It's going to be New Year's in a week. There are a lot of things to do in the department, and we haven't finished arranging the roster for the New Year's shift. Also, because of the incident in Germany, A lot of people in the department's legal department have been dealt with, so there's a shortage of manpower. I'm currently recruiting new people. Zhao Yang's heart skipped a beat as he recalled what Bai Yueran had just said to Gu Nianji. He quickly said, "You're recruiting?" Could he consider Nianji? She graduated from a prestigious school and she graduated early. I heard from Professor He that her graduation thesis was an excellent one. Bai Yueran looked at him with a smile. Her large eyes darted around. You and Big Xiong care so much about Gu Nianji. Aren't you afraid that Huo will be jealous? Zhao Yangzi shrugged. Huo isn't that kind of person. Also, he broke up with Nianji. Big Xiong and I are worried about the eunuch. So we thought that if we could get Nianji to join our department, maybe things could turn around for the better. They really broke up? Bai Yueran frowned in surprise. They still haven't reconciled after so long? She had thought that they were just having a quarrel. Look at Nianji's graduation celebration today. Big Xiong was the one who called Huo to invite him. Zhao Yangzi shook his head. His expression was helpless. Okay, I'm just saying. Do you think there's any hope? He still wanted Gu Nianji to join the Special Operations Forces, but he had his own selfish motives. Gu Nianji was considered his direct disciple. If such a computer-savvy person entered the Special Operations Forces, he could think of a way to transfer her over to help him. Although his current subordinates were all very good, Gu Nianji was different. She was a genius who could draw inferences from one instance and even catch people off guard. Bai Yueran shook her head regretfully. She said very solemnly, "I'm afraid that won't work. You know that our Special Operations Forces background checks are too strict. Anyone with a slightly unclear background can't be admitted. As for Gu Nianji, her background is still unknown. She's like a ticking time bomb. No one knows when she'll explode. So I can't agree to you." Zhao Yangzi also knew that it would be difficult. That was why he hoped Bai Yueran could make an exception. Bai Yueran's refusal was reasonable. However, Zhao Yangzi was still a little disappointed. He put his hands in his trouser pockets. His handsome face was calm. He nodded at Bai Yueran. "I understand." Bai Yueran had never seen such a cold and distant expression on Zhao Yangzi's face. Although it was only a little, her heart skipped a beat. She realized that her refusal had hurt Zhao Yangzi. Zhao Yangzi's passion had never faded from the first time he saw her. His eyes had always been bright when he looked at her. Bai Yueran looked away. She felt very guilty. She opened the car door. Just as she was about to get in, she suddenly turned around and called Zhao Yangzi. "Little Zhe?" Zhao Yangzi was about to turn and leave when he heard her call him. He instinctively turned around. "What is it?" The weather was gloomy. Snowflakes were already floating in the air. Zhao Yangzi's handsome and elegant face had a different kind of charm through the dancing snowflakes. He had been pursuing Bai Yueran for more than a year. Bai Yueran had always been indifferent. She didn't agree or reject him. In Bai Yueran's heart, she couldn't describe how she felt about Zhao Yangzi. She didn't hate him. In fact, she liked him. However, she always felt that she was just a little bit away from love. But today, in this parking lot, on this Saturday afternoon with the dancing snowflakes, Zhao Yangzi's slightly distant expression shot Bai Yueran's heart like an arrow. Because of her guilt, she actually felt a blossoming love for this man for the first time. "Little Zhe." She called him again. She let go of the car door and walked quickly to Zhao Yangzi. She reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck. Her slightly plump lips immediately pressed tightly against Zhao Yangzi's slightly thin but well-shaped lips. Zhao Yangzi's mind buzzed. The love he had been suppressing all this time was like a flood that had been blocked by a dam. It suddenly poured out. He hugged Bai Yueran's slender waist tightly and lowered his head to kiss her deeply. Huo Xiaoheng's car drove over. In the distance, he saw a tall man and woman kissing in the snow. The scene was beautiful, but he didn't care. He didn't have the habit of prying into other people's privacy. However, when he drove past them, he realized that the man was his personal secretary. He was also the current deputy chief of the Special Operations Forces, Zhao Yangzi. From the side profile and clothes of the woman, it was the director of the legal department, Bai Yueran, whom Zhao Yangzi had been pursuing. Did this mean that the lovers finally got together? Or did the heavens not disappoint those who persevere? Even the air seemed to be filled with the sour stench of love. Could it be that it wasn't snow that was falling from the sky today, but a shower of dog food? Huo Xiaoheng smiled faintly as he drove over. He stopped near them. This is the second update. The first update for the spiritual pet Fate, 100,000 Qidian coins, awarded by the leader, I Am Master Rashi, in June has arrived. Today is the third update. I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Also, today is Monday. Recommendation votes are very important. Dear friends, don't forget. The third update at 7 p.m. Chapter 952. Xiaoheng got out of the car and walked past the kissing couple as if he didn't see them. Zhao Yangzi and Bai Yueran were so engrossed in the kiss that they didn't notice Xiaoheng walking past them. When he arrived at the private room Gu Nianji had booked, Xiaoheng knocked on the door before pushing it open to enter. There was a large dining table in the middle of the private room that had been cleaned. They had probably already eaten. There was a mahjong table against the wall, but no one was playing mahjong. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi sat in front of the karaoke table, each with a microphone and their heads lowered as they chose songs. Gu Nianji and He Jichu sat on the sofa by the window and were playing cards with Bai Shuang. Bai Shuang kept looking at the door as she played cards. She was the first person to notice Xiaoheng enter. Xiao is here. Bai Shuang waved at her and asked Gu Nianji, "Can we serve Xiao's food now?" They had left food for him but didn't bring it up. Gu Nianji looked up to see Xiaoheng and nodded at him. "Okay, I'll get them to serve the food." Xiaoheng didn't stand on ceremony and sat down at the table. He greeted He Jichu and asked Gu Nianji, "Is the graduation thesis defense over? Did it go well?" "It went very well. The professors were very nice and didn't make things difficult for me." Gu Nianji smiled and got up to get someone to serve Xiaoheng food. Bai Shuang put down the cards in her hand and said, "I'll go help Nianji." She followed her out and He Jichu also put down the cards in his hand and took a sip of the red wine on the coffee table. After leaving the private room, Bai Shuang didn't follow Gu Nianji to order food. Instead, she walked directly out of the restaurant and towards the parking lot. Bai Yueran and Zhao Liangzi hadn't returned for so long, so she was a bit worried. She didn't know why, but her left eyelid kept twitching and she was very uneasy. At the entrance to the parking lot, Bai Shuang saw a scene she didn't want to see. Amidst the falling snow, Zhao Liangzi and Bai Yueran were hugging and kissing. Her heart felt like it was being cut, but she couldn't say a word. She knew Zhao Liangzi liked Bai Yueran, but Bai Yueran had never accepted Zhao Liangzi's pursuit. She also told her that she couldn't feel love for Zhao Liangzi. They couldn't feel love but they could hug and kiss? Bai Shuang stared at this scene. No matter how uncomfortable she felt, she still forced herself to watch this scene. She wanted to engrave this scene in her heart. Whenever she thought of Zhao Liangzi, she would remember this scene and warn herself to let go. Zhao Liangzi didn't like her at all. Closing her eyes, Bai Shuang's tears finally flowed down. Turning around, she quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand and quickly walked to the private room. She didn't want to stay here any longer, not even for a second. Bai Yueran and Zhao Liangzi kissed for a long time before slowly releasing each other's lips. Bai Yueran's lips were full and supple to begin with, even fuller than the average woman's lips. Now that Zhao Liangzi had kissed them until they were slightly swollen, they looked even more alluring. "I really want to put you in my pocket. Whenever I want to kiss you, I can take you out and kiss you." Zhao Liangzi chuckled softly. Bai Yueran was already 28 or 29 years old. This wasn't her first time in a relationship, but Zhao Liangzi's words still made her blush. "You're being chauvinistic." Bai Yueran raised her head and hugged Zhao Liangzi's neck. She smiled and said, "Why can't I put you in my pocket and take you out and kiss you whenever I want to kiss you? That's exactly what I want. You can put me in your pocket. You don't have to. Take me away. I'll work overtime with you." Zhao Liangzi's yearning for more than a year had finally been reciprocated. He was extremely excited and only wanted to stay with her a little longer. He didn't want to go back to the private room. Bai Yueran chuckled and tapped Zhao Liangzi's forehead with her finger. "Even you have times when you're lazy and shameless, my vice president? That's not good, is it? What principles and demeanor do I need when I'm with the person I like?" Zhao Liangzi was also good at sweet-talking. He lowered his head and pressed it against Bai Yueran's forehead. "Do you want me to go with you?" Bai Yueran was very tempted and almost blurted out, "Yes." But reason prevailed in the end. She tiptoed and kissed Zhao Liangzi's lips again before saying, "No need. What will Nianji think if you leave like this?" "Nianji won't care. She'll only be happier that I have a girlfriend." Zhao Liangzi knew Gu Nianji very well. He and Yin Shixiang treated Gu Nianji like a biological brother, and Gu Nianji also treated them like a biological sister. "Okay, even if Nianji doesn't care, what about Bai Shuang?" Bai Yueran gently pushed Zhao Liangzi away. "You should go back. Don't tell anyone about this for now, okay?" Zhao Liangzi thought that he had finally seen the light and wanted nothing more than to share his joy with the world. However, Bai Yueran asked him not to make it public. What do you mean? Is it shameful to be with me? Zhao Liangzi frowned and was almost unhappy. I'm single and you're also single. Why can't we say that we're together? It's not that I can't say it. Bai Yuan sighed. In her eyes, Zhao Liangzi was indeed a little childish sometimes. She stroked Zhao Liangzi's cheek to soothe him. It's not that we can't say it now. Then when can we say it? Zhao Liangzi held her hand and said solemnly, Actually, I understand your sister Bai Shuang's feelings. I've also made it very clear that the person I like isn't her. I think it's actually unfair to Bai Shuang that you're hiding our relationship like this. I don't think she wants this kind of charity. Bai Yuan choked at Zhao Liangzi's words, but she still held Zhao Liangzi's hand and said softly, I know, but it's almost New Year. Do you want Bai Shuang to have a miserable New Year? Zhao Liangzi was speechless. Okay, he really hadn't thought it through. Okay, then we'll go public after the New Year? Zhao Liangzi was very touched by Bai Yuan's thoughtfulness and felt that he loved her more every minute. Okay, after work on the 15th, we'll treat our colleagues from both departments to dinner. Bai Yuan let go of his hand. I really have to go. If I don't, I'll have to work overtime at night. Zhao Liangzi watched her leave and didn't ask her to stay. Watching Bai Yuan's car drive out of the parking lot, Zhao Liangzi turned to return to the private room. However, he had only taken a few steps when he saw Bai Shuang come out with her bag and walk in a hurry with her head down. Bai Shuang, where are you going? Zhao Liangzi instinctively called out to her. There's still dinner tonight. Let's eat together. Bai Shuang heard Zhao Liangzi's voice and shook her head. No, I still have something to do. I'll go first. She kept her head down. Zhao Liangzi was a little confused and bent down slightly to see her expression. He said jokingly, What's wrong? Bai Shuang? Did Nianji bully you? Don't be afraid, I'll help you teach Nianji a lesson. Bai Shuang listened to Zhao Liangzi's words and felt like a knife was being twisted in her heart. She suddenly looked up and said, Zhao Liangzi, if the person you like is my sister, then don't say that to me again. Thank you. As she spoke, she pushed him away. Zhao Liangzi's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was wrong and quickly said, Bai Shuang, what's wrong? He wanted to speak, but Bai Shuang had already turned around and looked up at him. You don't need to say anything. I saw everything just now. In just a short while, Bai Shuang's eyes were actually slightly red and swollen. Zhao Liangzi was speechless. I wish you both happiness. Bai Shuang saw that Zhao Liangzi didn't say a word and felt even more sad. I'm leaving. Goodbye. She used all the strength in her body to say goodbye. She only felt that although the world was big, there was no place for her, Bai Shuang. Her father had died on a small island in the Caribbean. Because of her father, she couldn't continue to serve in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so she lived in ignorance. Originally, she liked Zhao Liangzi because he was a bright light in her dark life. However, this bright light would shine on others in the future and could no longer shine on her. Bai Shuang rushed to her car and quickly drove away. Zhao Liangzi sighed and sent a text message to Bai Yuan. Bai Shuang already knows. She saw it all. Inside the private room, Hua Xiaoheng sat alone at the dining table eating. Gu Nianji was already sitting with Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi, watching them sing love songs to each other. Zhao Liangzi pushed the door open and came in. His mood wasn't very high. The joy of finding his sweetheart had been washed away by Bai Shuang. He picked up the remote control and turned on the flat-screen TV to watch out of boredom. Several channels were broadcasting this morning's car accident. According to the police's DNA test, the victims of the car accident this morning were the president of the Ishihara Corporation, Ishihara Wakashi, and his driver, secretary, and bodyguard. There was also Ishihara Wakashi's grandson, Ishihara Taro, and his driver. They were the only remaining descendants of the Ishihara family. Their deaths had a huge impact on the Ishihara Corporation. The stocks of many companies controlled by the Ishihara Corporation are plummeting like a cliff. It was the third watch. Today was the third watch. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. Also, today is Monday, so recommendation votes are very important. Please don't forget. Chapter 953. Gu Nianji sat beside Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi, listening to them sing. When Zhao Liangzi came in, Gu Nianji looked back. When Zhao Liangzi turned on the TV, Gu Nianji also heard the news. It was exactly what she was interested in. She couldn't help but walk to the sofa next to Zhao Liangzi. Resting her chin on her hands, she frowned. There was such a big fire. Didn't they all burn? How did they get a DNA test? Zhao Liangzi knocked her head and said angrily, It was just an oil truck fire. Do you think it was a high-temperature furnace in a crematorium? The human body doesn't burn that easily. It was just the outer skin. Gu Nianji's lips twitched. Feeling disgusted, she quickly waved her hands. I know. Brother Zay, don't say any more. You're so knowledgeable, okay? I'm not as knowledgeable as you. Genius girl, where are you going to get rich after graduation? Zhao Yangzi was not in a good mood. He lazily leaned against the sofa and stretched out his long legs. Picking up a pistachio from the coffee table, he peeled it and threw it in his mouth. He spat it into the trash after 2 bites. What's this? It's all bitter. Gu Nianji looked at Zhao Yangzi in confusion. Brother Zay, are you in a bad mood? Why would he be in a bad mood? Hua Xiaoheng's deep, magnetic voice came from the dining table. You got a beauty and you're in a bad mood? You want to go to heaven? Huh. Got a beauty? Something's going on. Gu Nianji's eyes lit up immediately. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Which beauty did you get, Brother Zay? Tell me. Zhao Yangzi looked at Hua Xiaoheng in shock. Hua Xiao, what did you say? Still trying to deny it? Hua Xiaoheng slowly turned around to glance at him, but from the corner of his eye, his gaze lingered on Gu Nianji's eyes, which were as black as ink and as bright as glass. The parking lot. Hua Xiaoheng only said 3 words. Zhao Yangzi immediately pursed his lips and smiled sheepishly. Hua Xiao is so observant. Nothing escapes your eyes. Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng, then at Zhao Yangzi. Her sparkling eyes blinked. Hua Xiao, did you see anything inappropriate in the parking lot? Yeah, you're just a kid, so don't ask so many questions. Zhao Yangzi curled his knuckles and knocked Gu Nianji's head again. All you know is gossip. What's wrong with gossip? Gu Nianji laughed as she dodged to the side. A life without melodramatic gossip is as lonely as snow. Brother Zay, tell me, which beauty is it? Zhao Yangzi finally snapped back to reality and stared at Gu Nianji in a daze. He lowered his voice and said, Even you know? Know what? Which beauty? What do you mean? Zhao Yangzi felt even more uneasy. It wasn't strange for others to know that he liked Bai Yueran because he had never hidden it. However, he thought that he was the only one who could see that Bai Shuang liked him, so everyone saw through it. Then, wouldn't Bai Shuang lose face? Zhao Yangzi had a headache. Seeing the red wine on the coffee table, he simply took a glass and poured himself a glass. Gu Nianji was completely confused. She couldn't guess who Zhao Yangzi was with at all. But looking at his sullen expression, could it be Bai Shuang? He couldn't be with the person he liked, so he could only be with the person who liked him. Gu Nianji leaned close to his ear and whispered, Brother Zay, Bai Shuang is also quite nice. Don't be unhappy, don't be so obvious. How can Bai Shuang behave? Zhao Yangzi took a sip of red wine and glanced at her sideways. What are you guessing? Don't talk nonsense. Isn't it Bai Shuang? Gu Nianji was surprised. Then if it's Director Bai, why would you be unhappy? This doesn't make sense. Hua Xiaoheng finished eating and heard Gu Nianji and Zhao Yangzi talking nonsense. The corners of his lips curled slightly. He walked over with a cup of pu'er tea and sat next to Zhao Yangzi. He said lightly, Yeah, didn't you get what you wanted? You even managed to get Director Bai and you're still not satisfied? Who are you trying to fool with that poker face? When Gu Nianji heard Hua Xiaoheng, a man who didn't show his emotions all year round, say that Zhao Yangzi had a poker face, she couldn't help but want to scold him. However, Hua Xiaoheng's authority was still there, so she didn't dare to act rashly. She quietly stood up and sat next to Hijichu. Hijichu didn't speak the whole time. He held his phone in one hand and a glass of red wine in the other. His head was lowered as he sat on the sofa opposite Gu Nianji. He kept scrolling through his phone and looked bored. Professor He, are you tired? Gu Nianji thoughtfully took a bottle of mineral water for Hijichu. Don't drink any more. How are you going to drive later? Hijichu looked up. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes seemed to ripple under the crystal lights in the private room. He narrowed his eyes and took the mineral water from Gu Nianji's hand. He unscrewed the cap and took a sip. He said coldly, I can't open it. You open it. Meh. My skills aren't that good. Gu Nianji smiled as she peeled a few pistachios and placed them on a pure white bone china plate with gold rims in front of Hijichu. Your skills aren't that good? I see that your skills are very good. Hijichu handed the phone to Gu Nianji. His voice was very low, like it came from the bottom of his heart. It dissipated before it reached his throat. Look at this car. It's like a roller coaster. There was a hint of anger in his voice. He suppressed it and didn't explode. However, Gu Nianji was very sensitive and immediately picked up on it. Professor He? What are you talking about? Gu Nianji looked at him in confusion. I really don't know how to drive. I only got my driver's license last year. I don't have many opportunities to drive. He Jichu felt the veins on his forehead about to pop. He swiped his finger on the phone and immediately began to play a video recording. In the dark winter morning, a bright red sports car was especially eye-catching on the highway. Gu Nianji's eyes widened and looked at He Jichu's phone in disbelief. Was this the surveillance video of her on the highway this morning? Where did He Jichu get this? Gu Nianji looked at He Jichu in shock. She was completely speechless. If Hu Xiaoheng had taken out this surveillance video, Gu Nianji wouldn't be surprised at all. But He Jichu, where did he get it? Although Hu Xiaoheng was talking to Zhao Liangzi, most of his attention was on Gu Nianji. When he looked up, he saw her flabbergasted expression. He frowned slightly. Nianji, what's wrong? Gu Nianji was extremely flustered. She didn't dare to turn around to look at Hu Xiaoheng, afraid that he would see the change in her expression. But she could not answer. With Hu Xiaoheng's intuition, he would immediately sense that something was wrong if she didn't speak. However, Gu Nianji subconsciously didn't want Hu Xiaoheng to know about the video on He Jichu's phone. Her intuition told her that this wasn't something that could be easily explained. He Jichu also looked at Gu Nianji. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. He seemed to be smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes at all. Anger, nervousness, lingering fear, and a bit of self-abandonment, as if he wanted to throw caution to the wind. Gu Nianji didn't understand. She reflexively grabbed He Jichu's phone. Hu Xiaoheng had already walked over and sat next to Gu Nianji. He reached out and flicked Gu Nianji's wrist. Gu Nianji didn't catch it, so He Jichu instinctively grabbed her hand. He opened his palm and his phone fell from his hand with a whoosh. Hu Xiaoheng caught it firmly in his hand. Gu Nianji's face instantly drained of color. Her plump lips trembled and even her palms were sweating. He Jichu felt the sweat on her palms and her trembling arm. He felt a little better and couldn't bear to squeeze her hand. He used his eyes to tell her not to be afraid. How could Gu Nianji not be afraid? Her mind raced as she thought about how to help He Jichu cover up this matter. She almost said that she was the one who did it and sent it to He Jichu's phone. That was because the video He Jichu had just shown her was obviously from the camera on the highway. And the cameras on the Imperial Capital Highway were all owned by the government. If He Jichu had these videos on his phone, didn't that mean that he had hacked into the Imperial Capital Traffic Police's surveillance system? Gu Nianji's mind was in a whirl. She didn't even have time to think about when He Jichu had such superb computer skills. She quickly glanced at Hu Xiaoheng, but found that he was still indifferent. He leaned against the sofa leisurely and swiped his finger on He Jichu's phone. He said calmly, Nianji, you were watching this just now? As he spoke, he handed He Jichu's phone to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji looked at it and was embarrassed. The page that Hu Xiaoheng was looking at was actually a website that sold luxury cars. The pages of luxury cars flashed before her eyes. Every one of them was as good as the custom-made red Ferrari that Hu Xiaoheng had given her. It turned out that He Jichu had already quietly switched the content on his phone. Hu Xiaoheng didn't see the high-speed video that Gu Nianji saw at all. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and clutched her chest with both hands. She was a little out of breath. Do you have water? I want water. Ice water. She was so nervous that she was about to explode. He Jichu gave her an unopened bottle of mineral water and sneered. That's all you got. Forget it. I don't need you to drive for me. Hu Xiaoheng threw the phone back to He Jichu. Professor, he wants to give Nianji a graduation present? He Jichu took the phone and nodded with a half-smile. Yes. I asked her to choose, but she refused. Actually, why are you treating me like an outsider? She's already graduated. I'm no longer her professor and she's no longer my student. His words were too provocative. Even Zhao Liangzi, who had something on his mind, could sense it. He looked at He Jichu, then at Hu Xiaoheng, and then at Gu Nianji, who was sitting between them like an ant on a hot pan. He smiled happily. Crossing his arms over his chest, Zhao Liangzi said leisurely, Sure, I love watching melodramatic gossip. A life without melodramatic gossip is as lonely as snow. He actually used Gu Nianji's earlier teasing words back at her. This is the first update. Today's third update is asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. At 1 p.m. I will give the leader of the alliance, I am Master Rashi Jun's spiritual pet fate, 100,000 Qidian coins, the second update. At 7 p.m. the third update. P.S. Thank you to Sword Goddess Jade for the 10,000 Qidian coins yesterday. Moi. Chapter 954. Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang had just finished singing and were about to call Gunyanji and Zhao Liangzi over to sing too when they saw the situation. They were stunned. Yin Shixiang walked over to drag Zhao Liangzi over to sing and kept giving him looks. "Little Zay, you must have had too much to drink. What kind of stupid gossip are you looking at? Where's the stupid gossip?" Although Zhao Liangzi wasn't as perceptive as Yin Shixiang, he was usually a smart person. But today he seemed to have opened 8 of his 9 orifices. He stiffened his neck and said to Yin Shixiang, "How did I drink too much? I only drank a little. What did I say wrong? Wasn't it?" He stretched out his arm and waved it across the room. Wu Xiaoheng, Gunyanji and He Zhichu, who were sitting on the sofa, all looked at him silently. Yin Shixiang was frightened by Wu Xiaoheng's gaze and pulled Zhao Liangzi even harder. Let's go. You're not drunk. Let's go sing. Didn't you say that when you got a girlfriend, you would sing love songs to her for a night? Our little prince of love songs?" Gunyanji puffed. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of tea as expected. "Something can happen while drinking tea," He Zhichu muttered as he picked up a tissue to wipe Gunyanji's face. His movements were so smooth and natural, as if he had done it 1,000 times. Gunyanji obediently raised her head and let He Zhichu wipe her face as if it was a habit. Wu Xiaoheng had been looking at Zhao Liangzi thoughtfully and worried about his condition, so he unconsciously slowed down. When he turned around, he saw that He Zhichu was already wiping Gunyanji's face. He couldn't start a fight with He Zhichu in front of so many people. After all, there were still a few people in the private room who were waiting to see the melodramatic gossip, with their eyes wide open, as if they wanted to see the world in chaos. Wu Xiaoheng took out a tissue and wiped the coffee table in front of him without batting an eyelid. The tea that Gunyanji had spat out was everywhere. He pursed his lips slightly, and his slender and powerful fingers slid across the coffee table. Soon the coffee table was cleaned up. He Zhichu threw the tissue away and glanced at the 3 people across from him. "Go sing." His voice was clear, but it had an invisible pressure. Yin Shixiang quickly grabbed Ma Qiqi with one hand and Zhao Liangzi with the other to go sing. Zhao Liangzi drank all the red wine in his glass and suddenly became excited. He became a microphone hog, singing song after song. "I tasted it gently. You said you loved me and I was still savoring the gentleness you gave me. I gently tasted it, this fragrant temptation. You have everything I like. Jay Chow's sweet. Passing by your world, I've lived even when I was at my peak. Please go forward, there's no need to look back. The person waiting for you at the finish line will be me. How I wish you were the last person. Who in the world listens to you? In the vast sea of stars, I persist in a kind of dream. I really want to touch the warmth in your hands. In the vast sea of people, who will I meet? The gentleness in your eyes, is it all for me? For meeting you?" He sang non-stop, drinking as he sang. In the end, he was almost hoarse from singing and his voice was hoarse. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi could only act as his background and keep pouring wine for him. Gunyanji was speechless. She had just graduated her master's degree in advance today and had also gotten rid of 2 old enemies. She was in a great mood. If someone else had spoiled the mood like this, she would have left immediately without another word. But now it was Zhao Liangzi. He was Brother Zay who had watched her grow up, so she could only support her head with her hand and look at Zhao Liangzi's back in confusion. "What's wrong with Brother Zay?" Gunyanji asked Wu Xiaoheng quietly. "Who did you see him with in the parking lot?" Wu Xiaoheng glanced at her. He didn't want to gossip about his subordinates, but Gunyanji's eyes were too concerned. He thought about it and said, "By Yuan. Isn't that the person he's been thinking about? He finally won the beauty, so why is he still singing these songs?" Gunyanji was very confused. He Zhichu leaned against the sofa with his eyes half closed and said dryly, "Bai Shuang also left." It was a statement, not a question. Gunyanji nodded. "When I went to order for Hua Xiao, Bai Shuang said she would go with me, but when I went to order, she went." Gunyanji suddenly understood. Bai Shuang also went to the parking lot. She covered her mouth in surprise and glanced at Wu Xiaoheng. Did Bai Shuang just happen to see it? Wu Xiaoheng thought about it and nodded slightly. Most likely. Then it makes sense. Gunyanji tilted her head inside. Brother Zay and Director Bai were probably making out in the parking lot, and Bai Shuang saw it. Then Brother Zay found out that Bai Shuang saw them making out. No wonder Bai Shuang came back crying, took her bag and left early. "I was just saying that we were having fun playing poker. Why did you suddenly stop playing?" When Gunyanji said this, Zhao Liangzi had just finished singing a song. In the suddenly silent room, only her crisp and soft voice could be heard echoing. It was actually quite awkward. Gu Nianji only realized that everyone was looking at her after she finished speaking. Although they weren't outsiders, she still blushed and brushed her hair in embarrassment. She looked at Zhao Liangzi, who was staring at her, fawningly. "Brother Zhe, right?" Zhao Liangzi snickered. He was already a bit drunk. He stood up and walked over shakily. "As expected of a genius girl. Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, it's exactly what you said. Come, Brother Zhe will drink with you." "She can't drink," Wu Xiaoheng and He Jichu said at the same time. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi sat on either side of Zhao Liangzi and watched Wu Xiaoheng and He Jichu guard each side. They were about to suffer from internal injuries from holding back their laughter. Gu Nianji was even more embarrassed. She smiled sheepishly and tried to find a way out. "What they mean is that I have to drive later, so I can't drink." "You can't drink until you're 22. He Jichu and Hu Xiaoheng said in unison again. Gu Nianji was speechless. Can't they just talk properly? Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi couldn't hold it in anymore. They hugged their stomachs and laughed uncontrollably on the sofa. Hu Xiaoheng and He Jichu both looked at each other expressionlessly. "Qiqi, do you still want to take my class next semester?" He Jichu teased Ma Qiqi first. Ma Qiqi immediately stopped laughing and sat up straight. She nodded solemnly. "Of course I do. Professor He, you must give me a spot." He Jichu's class next semester was limited to the number of people who could take it. B University's Faculty of Law, from undergraduates to doctoral students, fought tooth and nail to get a spot. If you want a spot, you better be careful. He Jichu's eyes said so. Ma Qiqi understood immediately. "Got it." She quickly stopped laughing at Gu Nianji. Wu Xiaoheng also looked at Yin Shixiang. "Big Xiong, you're still suspended. If you make another mistake, your punishment will increase." Yin Shixiang immediately stopped laughing and expressed his attitude very sincerely. "Wu Xiao, little Zhe is too much. I'll teach him a lesson when I get back." Only Zhao Liangzi was drunk. His beautiful eyes looked like they were covered in mist. Everyone he saw was blurry. He shouted, "Nianji, have a drink with your brother Zhe. My little sister Nianji is still the best. She's so obedient and considerate. Wu Xiao, you don't cherish her. You don't know how lucky you are. It's so hard for me to chase after my girlfriend, but you just crooked your finger and Nianji went over. That's not fair." Gu Nianji. She wasn't that easy to seduce. Gu Nianji was angry and was about to retort. Zhao Liangzi pointed at Hu Xiaoheng with a smile. "So you deserve to be dumped." Yin Shixiang, Ma Qiqi and Gu Nianji all turned pale. Only He Jichu's lips curled up more and more. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes curved, and a smile burst from the depths of his heart. This is the second update. The second update for the Spirit Pet Fate, 100,000 Chidian dollars, awarded by the leader, I Am Master Rashi, in June has arrived. Today's third update is asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. The third update at 7 p.m. Chapter 955. Zhao Liangzi was so drunk he staggered and looked like he was about to slide off the sofa. Only Hu Xiaoheng remained indifferent and looked at him calmly. Yin Shixiang broke out in a cold sweat and finally punched the back of Zhao Liangzi's neck to knock him out. Hu Xiao, little Zhe had mixed feelings today and drank a little too much. "Don't worry." Yin Shixiang stammered on Zhao Liangzi's behalf. Gu Nianji also wanted to say something, but Yin Shixiang quietly waved at her, so she could only shut her mouth. Wu Xiaoheng didn't look angry at all. He only stood up and said, "It's already a dereliction of duty to be this drunk after drinking so little. I'll send him back to sober him up, then have him submit a 10,000-word report. We'll talk about the subsequent punishment after he sobers up." As he spoke, he walked over to Zhao Liangzi and picked him up with one hand, dragging him out like a sack. Gu Nianji was speechless. Yin Shixiang wiped the sweat from his forehead and gave Gu Nianji a look to tell her to go after Hu Xiaoheng. He could tell that although Hu Xiaoheng didn't appear angry at all, he was definitely furious inside. It was just that people in their line of work were used to hiding their emotions. It was indeed unprofessional for Zhao Liangzi to suddenly go crazy like this. As Hu Xiaoheng said, this was dereliction of duty. The punishment would probably not be light. Yin Shixiang silently lit a candle for Zhao Liangzi. However, Gu Nianji was still thinking about the video on He Jichu's phone. She still didn't know where He Jichu got it from, so this was very important to her. "Brother Xiong, you and Qiqi go first. I'll go after paying the bill." Gu Nianji didn't chase after him. Instead, she winked at Ma Qiqi. "Qiqi, I'm sorry." Ma Qiqi quickly shook her head and smiled. It's fine, it's fine. I'm fine. As long as you're happy. Yin Shixiang wanted to go back to the base to see Zhao Liangzi and use the opportunity to plead for him. Then we'll go first. Yin Shixiang took Ma Qiqi's hand and smiled at Gu Nianji. Nianji, I'm taking Qiqi back to my hometown for the new year. I want to wish you a happy new year in advance. Oh? He was going to meet his parents. Congratulations. Gu Nianji was sincerely happy for Ma Qiqi and asked, when are you getting married? Let me know in advance when you've decided on a date. I'm going to give you a red packet. That's for sure. I won't accept your red envelope if it's too little. Nianji, all the best. Yin Shixiang chuckled as he patted her shoulder and nodded at He Zhichu. Professor He, please take Nianji back. He Zhichu put his hands in his trouser pockets and nodded demurely. Nianji knows how to drive my car. Gu Nianji, after Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi left, Gu Nianji and He Zhichu also left the private room to pay the bill at the front desk. However, the receptionist looked at the bill and said with a smile, the bill has been settled. Please take care. It's already done? Who is it? Gu Nianji was very surprised and asked the restaurant's front desk for a signed bill. The name Hua Xiaoheng was written in a flamboyant style. It was so scribbled that most people would not be able to recognize it. Of course, Gu Nianji recognized it. When she was the most infatuated with Hua Xiaoheng, she even secretly copied his handwriting. Every night after she finished her homework, she would look at his notes and copy them over and over again. It was sincere and sweet, and it was like she had the whole world written in his handwriting. Now that she looked at his signature again, Gu Nianji discovered that her heart was as calm as still water. She put down the signed bill and noted down the amount. It wasn't much and she could afford it. She would return the favor when she had the chance. Gu Nianji and He Zhichu walked out of the restaurant together. Both of them had driven their cars over. The snow on the ground was already thick and crunching when they stepped on it. Gu Nianji looked at her car and said hesitantly, Professor He, let's sit in my car. I'll take you here tomorrow to pick up your car. He Zhichu rubbed his temples and nodded in agreement. Okay, let's get in your car. The two of them sat in Gu Nianji's red Ferrari and drove out of the restaurant's parking lot. Gu Nianji drove He Zhichu back to the professor's building at B University. On the way, Gu Nianji began to beat around the bush and asked He Zhichu about the video. Professor He, where did you get the video from? He Zhichu ignored her at first, but after she kept asking, He Zhichu finally said dryly. You kept it from me, so why should I tell you? Gu Nianji was speechless. She lowered her head in shame and gripped the steering wheel as they got onto the highway. The situation from that morning was still vivid in her mind, but she didn't feel any psychological trauma at all. His courage could be said to have been trained. Gu Nianji sighed and said, Professor He, I didn't want to keep it from you, but I was afraid you'd be worried. You knew I'd be worried and you still did something like that? He Zhichu pulled up the video on his phone. Look at you, you're playing with fire. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and listened to He Zhichu scold her without saying a word. What's going on with that oil tanker? Why did it keep staring at you? Why were only the two cars from the Ishihara Corporation colliding with the oil tanker? Where did you get the guts to play hard to get on the highway? He Zhichu threw out a series of questions and Gu Nianji didn't know which to answer first. Because this matter was indeed a long story and he didn't know where to start. Gu Nianji turned on the stereo as she drove, and the sound of the piano filled the small space in the car like flowing water. It had a calming effect. He Zhichu was furious, and seeing that Gu Nianji didn't say a word, he became even angrier. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you not going to tell me anything in the future? Gu Nianji finally smiled and said, Professor He, you're being too serious. I didn't want to keep it from you, I actually kept it from Hua Xiao as well. He Zhichu was speechless. Although he wasn't very satisfied with this answer, why did his mood miraculously improve? Gu Nianji acutely sensed that He Zhichu's mood had improved, so she said, I planned everything out. The Ishihara family wants my life, so I can't just sit and wait. The Ishihara family wants your life. He Zhichu turned to look at her in shock. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Gu Nianji was also shocked. Why would I tell you earlier? Are you saying you can take care of this family without breaking the law? If this kind of scum's family is destroyed, then so be it. Do you still need to talk about the law? He Zhichu snorted and turned to look at the night view outside the car window. After a while he said, Did you leave any evidence behind for what you did? Do you want me to clean up the mess for you? Gu Nianji closed her eyes and said helplessly, Professor He, what are you thinking? I really didn't do anything. The only thing I did was call for takeout, and when the oil truck was about to hit me, I suddenly sped up to escape the fate of being caught under the 18-wheeler truck. Ijichu frowned as he watched the video again and again. It really was as Gunyenji said. He didn't know what Gunyenji meant by calling for takeout, but it was very clear from the video that she suddenly sped up. Gunyenji really didn't do anything. Ijichu breathed a sigh of relief. You have to know the severity of the situation. I believe you wouldn't lie to me about something like this. He paused and continued to ask her, how did you know that the Ishihara family wanted to harm you? Gunyenji glanced at him and said calmly, Professor He, do you remember that I almost fell and became paralyzed? I remember. It was Ishihara Taro who did it. Ijichu was speechless. Also, Ishihara Taro followed me for a long time to collect my whereabouts. He was determined to cause a car accident today. Ijichu recalled the car accident when Gunyenji was 12 years old, and his heart completely softened. Are you okay? Do you need to see a psychiatrist? I'm fine. Gunyenji beamed with joy as she slapped the steering wheel. I used my own strength to get rid of this grandfather and granddaughter once and for all, and also solved my own psychological problems. Ijichu pinched his brows. He felt a bit of a headache but also a bit proud. He smiled and said, I didn't expect you to be like this, Nyenji. Hehe, Professor He, you flatter me. I'm not complimenting you. Gunyenji didn't mind and continued to ask Ijichu, I've already confessed. Professor He, you also have to tell me where you got the video, right? I'm no longer your professor. Ijichu was suddenly very concerned about the way he addressed her. You can call me something else. Okay, Lawyer He. Gunyenji smiled and changed the way she addressed him. Go ahead. Ijichu sighed and rubbed his fingers on his phone. Finally he said, Actually, I used to study computer science. The law was changed later on. That impressive? Gunyenji expressed her sincere admiration. Then you have to teach me a few tricks. There will be opportunities in the future. Ijichu rested one hand on the side of the car window and propped his head up. He was lost in thought as he looked at the road ahead. The night was endless and there seemed to be no end in sight. But this was only an illusion. In reality, the sun would eventually rise and the suffering would also come to an end. Gunyenji's mood lightened. She hummed quietly as she got off the highway. Ijichu hesitated for a moment before saying, Nyenji, I'm going back to the United States tomorrow. I won't be back during the Lunar New Year. Gunyenji replied with an, oh, and didn't mind. Professor He, you're also going back for the Lunar New Year, right? Then I wish you a happy Lunar New Year in advance. Ijichu nodded. He originally wanted to say that he would explain everything when he got back, then come back to spend time with her and never leave again. But seeing Gunyenji's relaxed expression, he didn't say it. It was Ijichu's own decision to stay in the Wuxia Empire to accompany Gunyenji from now on. He didn't want to say it out loud and make Gunyenji feel pressured. He wanted her to be sincere, not pity, sympathy, or charity. If she still couldn't fall in love with him, then he was willing to admit defeat. This is the third update. Today's third update is asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Wax everyone. Chapter 956. Whoosh. A bucket of cold water splashed onto him. The muddle-headed Zhao Liangzi jumped up from the ground with a howl. Oh. Who the F*** seek. He wiped his face with his hand and was about to curse when he suddenly saw Hua Xiaoheng standing in front of him with his hands behind his back. His face was so handsome that it made one speechless, but he still looked calm and collected, as if he had not just splashed a pail of ice water on him. Zhao Liangzi's legs went limp, and he almost knelt in front of Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was wearing knee-high army boots. He raised his foot and kicked Zhao Liangzi, causing him to roll on the ground. Sober? Acting like a drunkard after drinking a little? I can fire you if you behave like this. Hua Xiaoheng spoke calmly. His voice wasn't loud and his tone wasn't fierce, but it was terrifying to Zhao Liangzi. Hua Xiaoheng, I was wrong. Zhao Liangzi almost kowtowed to Hua Xiaoheng. I shouldn't have pretended to be crazy and made fun of you. You can punish me if you want, but please don't fire me. Don't fire me. Zhao Liangzi instantly burst into tears. Deep fear shrouded his heart. He finally realized that no matter what kind of relationship breaking up, it couldn't compare to the pain of being fired from the special forces. Regardless of whether he had a girlfriend or not, his pain was bearable. The only thing he couldn't bear in life was being excluded from the special forces. He was a man kneeling on the ground and crying like a child. Hua Xiaoheng didn't try to persuade him. He just quietly looked down at him. Only when he was exhausted and hoarse from crying did he walk over to a nearby chair and sit down. He crossed his legs and calmly said, "Have you cried enough?" Zhao Liangzi sniffled and nodded vigorously. He stared at the water stains on the floor. They were left by Hua Xiaoheng pouring cold water on him. He didn't dare look up at Hua Xiaoheng. "Of course I have to punish you. Do you know why I'm going to punish you?" Zhao Liangzi recalled what he had said in the private room and regretted it so much that he wanted to cut off his tongue. He mustered up the courage to raise his head and make a zipping motion with his hand. "Don't worry, Hua Xiao. I won't speak carelessly in the future, and I definitely won't make fun of you." Hua Xiaoheng shook his head and stood up from his chair. "Do you think I'm punishing you because you made fun of me?" With that he walked towards the door. Zhao Liangzi panicked and jumped over to hug Hua Xiaoheng's military boots. "Hua Xiao, don't go. I know I was wrong." Hua Xiaoheng still had his hands behind his back and didn't turn around. He stared straight ahead and said, unmoved, "Little Zay, your specialty is technology. You don't have many opportunities to go out into the field, and you've never been stationed abroad. I'm thinking that this isn't good for you." Zhao Liangzi sheepishly withdrew his hand and pushed himself up from the floor. He muttered, "Am I that bad?" "Yes, based on your performance today, if you were out in the field, the enemy would have discovered your flaws long ago. If you're not honored now, then you're sacrificed." Hua Xiaoheng glanced back at him. "Honor and sacrifice mean the same thing, Hua Xiaoheng." Zhao Liangzi gestured at him. "I'm not afraid. Wasn't it just death?" People in this line of work had long since disregarded life and death. "Yes, because I didn't want to say it had another meaning." Hua Xiaoheng turned around and stared at Zhao Liangzi. A trace of coldness gradually appeared in his eyes. "Or do you want me to say that you've betrayed us?" "Absolutely not." Zhao Liangzi jerked his head up and his eyes widened. "I'd rather die than betray you. Little Zay, I think you have some misunderstandings. Betrayal is not considered betrayal when you can't handle the torture. Unintentional leaking of secrets is also considered betrayal." Hua Xiaoheng's voice was completely cold. "Because of your momentary distraction, many of our colleagues may have been sacrificed abroad. Have you thought about it?" Zhao Liangzi's expression gradually changed. His voice was hoarse. "Hua Xiaoheng, I understand. If you can't control your emotions, then don't do this line of work." Hua Xiaoheng warned him again. "Otherwise you'll harm others and yourself. You'll cause irreparable damage to the country and the military at any moment." Zhao Liangzi finally accepted Hua Xiaoheng's criticism sincerely. He rubbed the back of his neck with lingering fear. "Hua Xiaoheng, I'll never do it again." Hua Xiaoheng looked at him coldly for a while. Seeing that he was truly remorseful, he finally nodded. His voice softened. "I know this is your first time in a relationship. It's normal for your emotions to fluctuate. Only a man who has been in love and broken up is a real man." Hua Xiaoheng patted him on the shoulder. "Good luck. I'll wait for the day you get dumped." With that, he sauntered away. Zhao Liangzi suddenly understood that he had still been played. He gritted his teeth as he looked at Hua Xiaoheng's back. The word "ba" was stuck in his throat. He almost choked to death. He and Big Xiong were lucky to have not been played to death by this kind of boss. He had just been sanctimoniously criticizing and educating him from the bottom of his heart. He really thought that he had no selfish motives at all. He had cried so hard that he wanted to dig his heart out. In the end, he still had to return the words that he had said to him. Zhao Liangzi cursed silently, but he remembered Hua Xiaoheng's words. He didn't dare to indulge his true emotions again. Although he felt that Hua Xiaoheng had abused his power for personal gain, on the surface he was really doing it for his own good. If he had been in the field at this time, who knew how much information the other party's smarter agents would have gotten from him? Zhao Liangzi took a deep breath and pushed the door open to leave. As soon as he returned to his room and changed his clothes, his orderly knocked on the door. Chief Hua wants you to go to his office." Zhao Liangzi quickly adjusted his regular clothes and put on a woolen military coat. He went to Hua Xiaoheng's office. "Hua Xiaoheng, is there anything else? Are you going to continue punishing me?" Zhao Liangzi stood respectfully in front of Hua Xiaoheng's desk. Hua Xiaoheng pointed to the chair opposite him. "Sit." Zhao Liangzi sat up straight and looked at Hua Xiaoheng intently. Hua Xiaoheng took out a transfer order from the printer and handed it to Zhao Liangzi. "Our department has always wanted to establish a base in Africa. It is also to test the global coverage of the Nandu satellite. It just so happens that they lack a leader. I see that you are outstanding in your work and have both intelligence and courage, so I'm sending you. Zhao Yangzi pursed his lips and didn't dare to say anything. He took the transfer order from Hu Xiaoheng and glanced at it. I'm leaving tomorrow? Can I wait until after the new year? Hu Xiaoheng didn't say anything. He looked at Zhao Yangzi quietly, one hand tapping on the desk. The tapping wasn't loud, but in Zhao Yangzi's ears, it was deafening like a machine gun. Zhao Yangzi glanced at Hu Xiaoheng and his voice became softer and softer until he finally said, "Okay." He held the transfer order and took a deep breath. He stood at attention and gave Hu Xiaoheng a very standard military salute. Special Operations Forces Deputy Chief Zhao Yangzi accepts the mission. Hu Xiaoheng finally nodded slightly and closed his eyes. He said calmly, "There's no need to celebrate the new year. We'll leave immediately. As for your girlfriend, you've been pursuing her for so long. It's her turn to pursue you. I'll watch out for you." Zhao Yangzi was about to cry again from Hu Xiaoheng's sarcasm, but he still couldn't say a word. He couldn't show any of his true emotions. He squeezed out a bitter smile. "Don't worry, Hu Xiaoheng. If it's mine, it's mine. If it's not mine, there's no point in pursuing it. I've thought it through." "Okay, it's good that you've thought it through." Hu Xiaoheng waved his hand to dismiss him. Zhao Yangzi turned around and walked 2 steps before turning back to say, "Hu Xiaoheng, the German Federal Intelligence Services system that Nianji sent back is still being deciphered. Who do you think will take over?" He continued, "Actually, I think the best person is Nianji. She was the one who obtained this information, so I won't be satisfied with anyone else getting the credit." Hu Xiaoheng looked up at him and said calmly, "You should do it. No one else needs to take over." "Me? But I'm going to Africa." Zhao Yangzi was full of resentment. Not only in Africa, but also on a small island in the Strait of Gibraltar in the southernmost part of Africa. It was said to be a place where transportation is basically by walking, communication is basically by shouting, ships can't go ashore, and entertainment is basically by hand. How could they continue to decipher information in such a place? Hu Xiaoheng folded his hands and placed them on the desk. He squinted his eyes and smiled. "That's why we need you to go and set up our equipment there. Not only will there be power generation equipment, but there will also be a base station and a network. You can completely change the situation of transportation is basically by walking, communication is basically by shouting, ships can't go ashore. However, entertainment is still by hand. There's no other way unless your girlfriend goes to visit you." The corners of Zhao Yangzi's mouth twitched. He found that he was finally calm. So what if he was dumped? If he could really build that small island, he would be the owner of the island. Zhao Yangzi chuckled. "Okay, I'll listen to Hu Xiaoheng. It's better than going to the kitchen and raising pigs." Hu Xiaoheng laughed and said slowly, "Don't say I didn't remind you. You also have to raise pigs on the island." Zhao Yangzi thought that Hu Xiaoheng had already taught him to be immune to poison, but when he heard the words "raise pigs on the island," his expression still changed. "Hu Xiaoheng, are you serious? Pigs are man's best friend. Don't look down on pigs. If you want to change your diet on the island, you have to earn your own living." Hu Xiaoheng said meaningfully and crooked his finger at him. "Come here." Zhao Yangzi moved closer and asked warily, "What's the matter?" Hu Xiaoheng nodded meaningfully and whispered in Zhao Yangzi's ear. "It said that that's where MH210 crashed. You're going there to develop the land. The most important thing is to find the truth behind the crash." Hu Xiaoheng paused. "If you want to find Gu Xiangwen, you have to start from that small island." Zhao Yangzi looked at Hu Xiaoheng as if he had just woken up from a dream. He had thought that Hu Xiaoheng was really using his position for personal gain. It turned out that he had been too naive. The person in front of him was the best at making use of all favorable and unfavorable conditions to serve the interests of his country. Zhao Yangzi was completely loyal to Hu Xiaoheng. The slight resentment he had originally had disappeared. He carefully folded the transfer order. "Hu Xiaoheng, don't worry. Just let them think that I was punished. That's convenient. That was the only way to cover up their deepest motives." Hu Xiaoheng leaned back in his seat and said calmly, "Yes, especially your 2 girlfriends. They have to believe that you angered me, so I punished you and sent you to Africa." This was the first update. Today was the 3rd update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Monthly votes were 2,100 plus updates at 1 p.m. 3rd update at 7 p.m. Chapter 957. 2 girlfriends? Zhao Yangzi wanted to cry out, "I haven't even settled one yet, How can I have two girlfriends? Wuxiao, don't talk nonsense. How can I be human if others find out? He was two-timing, and now he was labeled as a scumbag. He could forget about being with his sweetheart ever again. Wuxiao. The brilliant, mighty, and unparalleled Wuxiao, please don't slap me in the face. Zhao Liangzi bowed to Wuxiaoheng, wanting to prostrate himself to show his complete repentance and surrender. He was completely subdued by Wuxiaoheng and didn't dare to cause trouble again. Wuxiaoheng curled his lips. Isn't that the case? Little Zhe, maybe you're confused by the situation, but I'm a bystander. Zhao Liangzi wanted to sew his mouth shut. Wuxiaoheng remembered every word that he and Yin Shixiang had said to Wuxiaoheng and Yanji back then. Now he was taking the opportunity to slap them in the face. Okay, think carefully about which one you like. I don't care how many girlfriends you have in Africa, but you can only have one when you're back in the Wuxia Empire. Wuxiaoheng looked at Zhao Liangzi meaningfully. Zhao Liangzi suddenly felt uncomfortable. He felt like he had become bait, or like the peach in Two Peaches Kill Three Men. Wuxiao, we have to be clear about this. Zhao Liangzi's mind inadvertently flashed with Bai Shuang's red eyes from crying. What do you mean? Work is work and feelings are feelings. I know how to differentiate. I don't mean anything. It's best if you can differentiate, but it's okay if you can't. Africa is so far away anyway, so there's not much you can do even if you fail. What I don't see, I don't grieve over. Wuxiaoheng waved his hand. Go, don't come to say goodbye tomorrow. I'll wait for your Spring Festival message from Africa. I'll help you read the overseas congratulatory telegram at the Spring Festival Gala. Wuxiaoheng curled his lips into a half-smile. Zhao Liangzi imagined the awkward overseas congratulatory telegram and video call at the Spring Festival Gala and shuddered. Wuxiao, spare me. Don't you feel embarrassed? He turned to leave, determined not to contact Wuxiao again before he settled in Africa. Who knew how many more pitfalls were waiting for him? After Zhao Liangzi left, Wuxiaoheng sat behind his desk for a while before standing up and pacing around the office with his arms crossed. Looking at the sky outside the window, it was already late at night. He looked at his watch. It was 10 minutes to 12. He wondered if Nianji had gone back yet. Wuxiaoheng thought about it for a while, then put on his Bluetooth headset and called Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji walked Hijichu to the B University professor's building. Professor He, are you alright? Drink some honey water when you get back. It will help you get over the hangover. Gu Nianji was a bit worried about Hijichu's condition. She kept feeling that he was a bit absent-minded. She wasn't sure if it was because he had too much to drink or because he was in a bad mood. She looked down to see Hijichu's slender and clean fingers on the black car door handle. She murmured, Professor He, I didn't mean to hide it from you. Hijichu turned to look at her, his shimmering, sultry eyes flashing. Yeah, then you have to tell me if anything happens in the future. I'm different from Wuxiaoheng. I won't scold you. Whatever you want to do, I'll help you achieve it. Gu Nianji smiled sheepishly and lowered her head even more. Professor He, it's not good for you to be like this. You'll spoil me. How could that be? Hijichu laughed. His voice was as gentle and warm as the spring breeze. My little Nianji can't be spoiled no matter how much I spoil her. I know that. Such an affectionate tone and unabashed attitude made Gu Nianji's scalp tingle. The high wall she had built in her heart was actually in danger of collapsing. She closed her eyes. She didn't know why, but she felt more and more familiar with Hijichu. Could it really be, as Hijichu had said, that she had known him since she was very young? Gu Nianji couldn't help but want to touch the forbidden areas in her memory again. She wanted to break through the haze and see the hidden truth. But as usual, she couldn't remember anything no matter how hard she tried. The fire when she was 12 seemed to have burned away her past. Not a speck of dust remained. Hijichu saw that Gu Nianji's eyes were half closed. In the dim car lights, her face was pale. Are you thinking about the past again? Hijichu held her hand and found that her palms were sweaty. His heart ached as he wiped her hands with a tissue. Don't think about it anymore. The past is the past. I don't even care about it anymore. What are you thinking about? Gu Nianji's eyelashes fluttered. She slowly opened her eyes. It wasn't that she wasn't disappointed, but she didn't want to add to Hijichu's psychological burden. She quietly leaned against the steering wheel. After a while she said, Professor He, I said I'm no longer your professor. Hijichu finally couldn't help but correct her again. Gu Nianji smiled. But I like to call you Professor He. It's very intimate and considerate. Like a relative. Hijichu was speechless. He opened the car door and got out without a word. He closed the door and walked to the lobby of the professor's building without looking back. Gu Nianji shook her head with a smile. She locked the car door and drove to her apartment in the Hipingli district. It was almost midnight. The B University campus was quiet. Most of the students had already gone home for the winter break. A few people stayed to study or work. But at this time, most people were already asleep. Gu Nianji yawned and also felt a bit sleepy. As soon as she drove out of the south gate of B University, she heard Hu Xiaoheng's personal ringtone. She put on her Bluetooth headset and answered the call. Wu Xiao. Her voice was a bit hoarse and carried a sense of lethargy. Wu Xiaoheng froze. Still outside? He thought he could hear the sound of the wind, but it was actually his imagination. Gu Nianji sat in the car with the windows down. Where did the wind come from? Gu Nianji grunted. I just sent Professor He back to the professor's building. Wu Xiaoheng pursed his lips and deliberately ignored what Gu Nianji said. He said directly, Did Professor He invite you to his house for the new year this year? Gu Nianji was stunned. Why would he invite me to his house for the new year? Ah. Hu Xiaoheng laughed and said calmly, Didn't he want to pursue you? Isn't it perfect to take you home to meet his parents during the new year? His tone was very normal, so it was impossible for Gu Nianji to detect any jealousy in it. Hu Xiaoheng had deliberately not mentioned celebrating the new year with Gu Nianji this year because he was observing He Jichu's reaction and whether he would take the opportunity to take Gu Nianji back to his house. Of course, the result was beyond his expectations. He Jichu had gone back for the new year, but he had gone alone and did not take Gu Nianji home. Haha, Hu Xiao is overthinking it. Professor He is not Brother Xiong in a hurry to take his girlfriend home. Gu Nianji sneered and turned the steering wheel to the main road in front of the Hipingli district. After a short drive, they entered the Hipingli district. Wu Xiaoheng was about to continue the conversation when he suddenly remembered something and immediately stopped talking about why He Jichu did not take Gu Nianji home to meet his parents. He quietly changed the topic. Nianji, how do you plan to spend the new year this year? Gu Nianji had always spent the new year with Wu Xiaoheng in the past. Now that they were still broken up, she was too embarrassed to mention spending the new year with Wu Xiaoheng. Especially since Wu Xiaoheng did not seem to have any intention of inviting her. Gu Nianji parked the car in the parking lot. After turning off the lights, she looked around to make sure there was no one else in the parking lot before opening the door and getting out. She carried her small bag into the elevator and said dryly, I'm spending it alone. I finally graduated and became independent, so of course I have to enjoy the new year by myself. Wu Xiaoheng walked to the balcony and placed both hands on the railing. He thought for a while and said, I have to be on duty during the new year. Why don't you come to the base and spend it with me? Ah. Gu Nianji took out her key card and opened the door. She shook her head and refused. No need. You can't be distracted when you're on duty. I'm fine by myself. I still want to go on a trip during the new year. Hu Xiaoheng heard that she had already entered the house and nodded. Okay, then we'll talk about it when the time comes. He hung up. Gu Nianji threw her small bag on the sofa and lay down for a while. After a tiring day, she was physically and mentally exhausted. Gu Nianji did not even have time to wash up before falling asleep on the sofa. She slept soundly and didn't wake up until noon the next day. She habitually took out her phone and saw that He Jichu had already called her a few times. She had missed all of them. He Jichu left her a message saying that he had already taken his private plane back to the United States. He told her to enjoy the new year and not to run around. He also told her to remember to call his personal number if anything happened. Then Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang happily went to Yin Shixiang's hometown to celebrate the new year with his parents. Gu Nianji found it funny when she saw their messages. Her mood immediately improved. For the next few days she lived a very fulfilling life. She cleaned every corner of the house and went to the flower market to buy a lot of New Year's flowers to decorate her room. She also bought a lot of ingredients and put them in the fridge. She planned to cook New Year's Eve dinner alone this year. However, her plan did not succeed. On the morning of New Year's Eve, she was startled awake by a knock on the door. She put on her sleeping robe and looked at the screen to see that it was Song Jining standing at the door. Gu Nianji opened the door in surprise. "Any Song, why are you here? It's New Year's Eve today." Song Jining looked at her with a smile and pushed her into the bathroom. "Quick, take a shower and get changed. We're going to the new house I bought. Nianji, I'm all alone. I don't even have anyone to spend New Year's with. Do something good and spend New Year's with me, okay?" This is the second update. Monthly votes of 2,100 plus updates have arrived. Today is the third update. I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Third update at 7 p.m. P.S. How about a small theater and a special Weibo post? Of course there are in the group too. Chapter 958. Oh. Gu Nianji was shocked. Why are you spending the new year alone? Gu Nianji was about to say that Song Jining had a son and a husband, but she immediately remembered she couldn't say that. Hua Xiaoheng's son had to be on duty during the new year and might even have to go down to the village to greet the soldiers. Hua Guanchen was her ex-husband and they had a falling out a long time ago, so it was impossible for them to spend the new year together. Hua Guanchen was also a general and the director of the political department. He would also be out during the new year and wouldn't be able to spend the new year with her. Song Jining's father had passed away in that accident 18 years ago. So Song Jining was like her. She was actually all alone. She didn't have any family to begin with, so it wasn't like she had lost them. Song Jining, on the other hand, had a family, but it was like she didn't have one. Thinking about it, it was actually worse than her. Gu Nianji treated Song Jining even better because of this. Also, when the great beauty smiled and said that she was all alone, Gu Nianji immediately wanted to spend the new year with her. Okay, I'll agree to anything you say. Gu Nianji hurriedly took a shower and changed into the clothes she had prepared for the new year. She was wearing Chanel's latest bright red flower skirt, paired with a dark brown Burberry slim-fit sheepskin coat, and a pair of knee-high high-heeled boots with a wool lining inside. It was a rare pair of high-heeled boots in UGG that had a sense of fashion. She grabbed the red Hermes Berlin bag that Hua Xiaoheng had bought for her and put her phone, car keys, card and wallet inside. She also put in a pair of sunglasses, a pack of tissues, and a piece of chocolate before following Song Jining out. "Andy Song, did you drive here?" Gu Nianji looked around and didn't see Song Jining's car. Song Jining shook her head with a smile. "I took a taxi. It's so convenient now. Let's take another one." Gu Nianji was speechless. "Then let's take my car." Gu Nianji took Song Jining to the underground parking lot. "Oh, this is your car? It's so beautiful, it matches your outfit today." Song Jining couldn't stop praising it. Gu Nianji suddenly remembered that Hua Xiaoheng had given her the car. She blushed but still said, "This is Hua Xiao's car. Andy, if you like it, you can take it." She purposely didn't mention that Hua Xiaoheng had gifted it to her. If she did, Song Jining would never accept it. But even if she didn't say it, Song Jining wouldn't want it. She smiled and said, "There's no need. I'm in the lab every day and rarely use the car. You should drive. Besides, this car suits you so well. Even the door has your name on it." Gu Nianji blushed. "I forgot about that." She smiled sheepishly and opened the car door for Song Jining to get in. Then she got into the driver's seat. The interior of the bright red sports car was completely black, and the red and black corresponded with each other. It was indeed very eye-catching, and one could tell at a glance that it was expensive. Song Jining carefully looked at the decorations in the car and immediately understood that this car was definitely her son's handiwork. The interior didn't look like a little princess at all. Instead, it was simple and low-key. Everything focused on comfort and cleanliness. Song Jining clicked her tongue and thought about how to help her son fill in the gaps and win back Gu Nianji's maiden heart. Gu Nianji didn't know what Song Jining was planning. She was just a little nervous. Because Song Jining was sitting in the car, she drove especially carefully. Fortunately, it was New Year's Eve, so there was no traffic on the roads. She followed Song Jining's directions and smoothly drove all the way to Song Jining's newly bought apartment. Of course, the location was top-notch. It was an apartment on the third ring road of the imperial capital with excellent privacy and environment. It was also in the same building as the apartment that Hua Xiaoheng had bought for Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji muttered to herself, "Is this really not a coincidence?" Song Jining didn't seem to know that Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng used to have a love nest here. She even enthusiastically introduced the apartments to her. "Nianji, your apartment in Hepingli is not bad, but it's fine when you're a student. Will it be inconvenient if you still live there when you're working? Why don't you move in here and live with me?" Song Jining warmly invited her. "Look, I have a lot of rooms here." Song Jining showed Gu Nianji around one by one. Indeed, her apartment was much bigger than the one that Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng used to live in. It was a duplex and had a total of 6 bedrooms, 2 study rooms, 4 bathrooms, and a living room large enough to hold a ball. There were also 2 dining rooms and 2 kitchens. There was a small kitchen upstairs and the main kitchen downstairs. Gu Nianji was amazed. She didn't even dare to ask how much the apartment cost. As Song Jining spoke, she took her to a bedroom on the 2nd floor facing south. As soon as she opened the door, Gu Nianji was almost blinded by the pink, princess-themed decor. "Nianji, this is the room I specially reserved for you." Song Jining took her hand. It's okay even if you and Xiaoheng don't work out. I like you. Anyway, if you do, you'll be my daughter-in-law. If not, you'll be my goddaughter and have to call me mom. Gu Nianji's eyes immediately reddened. This kind of love from a female elder was too precious to her. Back at Ma Qiqi's home, she had secretly envied Ma Qiqi's mother. Mom? Gu Nianji couldn't help but try calling out. Her plump, curvy lips were tightly pressed together. The tip of her tongue pressed against her teeth, and she gently spat out a syllable. The sound broke through her lips, like sesame glutinous rice balls rolling in water, then scooped up and placed in her mouth. It was so delicious and sweet. You're my daughter. Song Jining hugged her shoulders, also a bit moved. I used to dream of having a daughter, but I didn't think I'd have a son like Xiaoheng. After that, I didn't have the chance to have another child anymore. Gu Nianji didn't say a word. She hugged Song Jining's arm tightly and leaned her head on her shoulder. Her love for Song Jining was obvious. Song Jining pulled her inside and walked around the apartment. Nianji, you can stay here, okay? After the new year you can move your things here. I don't usually come back anyway. I live in the dormitory at the Physics Institute. It's no different from you living alone. Although Gu Nianji was very attached to the feeling Song Jining gave her, she still declined. Auntie, don't worry. I'll come visit you after the holidays. Gu Nianji pulled Song Jining out of the room. What are we eating for New Year's Eve dinner today? Song Jining smiled. I'll make some fried rice and send it over to Xiaoheng. He loved my fried rice when he was young. Gu Nianji was speechless. Was it really okay to only eat fried rice for New Year's? Gu Nianji realized that someone was even more ignorant than she was. She didn't think she was looking down on her. Instead, she thought Song Jining was even more adorable. This Madame Song was such a wonderful person. Gu Nianji looked at Song Jining and couldn't help thinking that such a beauty was really going to dedicate her entire life to scientific research. Nianji, can you send it over for me later? Song Jining turned on the rice cooker to cook first, then went to prepare the ingredients for the fried rice. Gu Nianji looked at Song Jining's fridge and saw that there were plenty of ingredients. She took out 2 T-bone steaks, melted the butter in a pan and began frying the steaks. Steak was a dish that mainly relied on the ingredients. If the ingredients were good, the dish was basically a success. Heat control wasn't important, and it could be cooked as well as it was needed. Gu Nianji made 2 large T-bone steaks for Hua Xiaoheng. They were medium rare and she squeezed some lemon and pear juice onto the steaks. The aroma instantly hit their nostrils. Even Song Jining, who was cooking the fried rice, couldn't stop praising it and asked Gu Nianji to make a few more steaks later. Of course, Gu Nianji agreed readily. The two worked together and quickly made fried rice and steaks. Gu Nianji also brought a box of washed organic blueberries as fruit. She placed them in a food container and sent it to Hua Xiaoheng. This was the 3rd update. Today was the 3rd update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Mwah. P.S. Mao-Han's Weibo, writer's Cambrian. You can search it. There was also a fan club's Weibo, Cambrian Fan Club. The Cambrian Records was a record of notes, not a record of records. Chapter 959. Gu Nianji drove to the gate of the Special Operations Forces headquarters base and told the guard at the gate where she came from. The guard also recognized her. Gu Nianji used to go in and out of the base often. After Hua Xiaoheng married her, he gave her a special pass. Gu Nianji didn't recognize this marriage, so of course she didn't need the special pass that Hua Xiaoheng gave her. Although the guard at the gate knew her, he couldn't let her in if she couldn't produce the pass. Gu Nianji called Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng and 2 of his trusted subordinates who were on duty during the Spring Festival were doing an annual inspection of the system in the central control room on the 6th floor of the basement. The huge supercomputer, as well as all kinds of emergency equipment and power generation devices throughout the basement, were checked and inventoried by the 3 of them. Half of his body was numb, and a large piece of his right arm had been electrocuted. He was in so much pain that he couldn't even lift it. The 2 subordinates hurriedly applied medicine to his wound, took a fixed splint and tied up his arm. Hua Xiaoheng sat to the side and watched them continue working. At that moment, the Bluetooth headset he was wearing indicated that there was a call coming in and told him that it was from Gu Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng was slightly startled but quickly picked up the call. Nianji, what happened? Hua Xiaoheng's intuition told him that something had happened for her to call him on New Year's Eve. Gu Nianji had been busy trying to distance herself from him, so he didn't think that she was calling him for New Year's. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and whispered. Auntie Song made you fried rice and asked me to bring it to you for New Year's Eve dinner. She paused and said in an even quieter voice, and 2 steaks. I cooked them. Wu Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows. How did Gu Nianji get involved with Madame Song? He walked to the elevator and said, Madame Song went to your place? Gu Nianji shook her head and walked back and forth in front of the gate of the Special Operations Forces headquarters base. Auntie Song came to find me and said that no one would spend New Year's with her, so she dragged me to her house. Wu Xiaoheng was relieved. As long as nothing happened, it was fine. Then he felt a sense of novelty. His mother, Madame Song, was actually a real nerd. Although she was beautiful, she had never been interested in people. She was most interested in her laboratory. He really didn't expect Miss Song to have such thoughts. In that case, Miss Song really wanted Gu Nianji to be her daughter-in-law. Wu Xiaoheng couldn't help laughing. Madame Song's IQ discrimination couldn't be any better. Putting everything else aside, out of so many women, Madame Song probably only liked Gu Nianji's IQ. Wu Xiaoheng exited the building, found a car, and drove to the gate with his left hand. The main gate of the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces was quite a distance away from their office and living area. If he were to walk, it would probably take him 10 to 20 minutes. It took them less than 5 minutes to arrive at the gate. Wu Xiaoheng got out of the car and waved at the guards at the door. He took out his special pass and said, She can come in with me. Wu Xiaoheng's special pass was of the highest level, and he could bring 4 people in at once. Gu Nianji's eyes widened when she saw Wu Xiaoheng's right arm hanging from his neck with a splint. Mr. Hua, your arm? It's nothing, just a small injury. Wu Xiaoheng patted his right arm nonchalantly. The guards at the door saluted and watched as Wu Xiaoheng pulled Gu Nianji into the car. Gu Nianji actually didn't want to get in the car. She planned to leave after giving the food box to Wu Xiaoheng. However, Wu Xiaoheng extended his uninjured left hand to her, and Gu Nianji found that she couldn't refuse. Her eyes never left Wu Xiaoheng's right arm. Is Brother Qin here? Did he shine a light on you? Gu Nianji looked at Wu Xiaoheng holding the steering wheel with his left hand. It was very inconvenient and she was a little worried. Qin Lai went back for the new year. Wu Xiaoheng finally inserted the car key into the keyhole. He was rather clumsy. My car is still parked at the gate. Gu Nianji glanced behind her, then looked at Wu Xiaoheng's right arm hanging. There are guards at the gate and you're still afraid that someone will steal your car? Wu Xiaoheng gave her a sidelong glance. The thief who stole the car from the entrance of the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces hasn't been born yet. Don't worry. Gu Nianji looked back at her bright red sports car and turned to Wu Xiaoheng. I'll drive. Wu Xiaoheng had been waiting for her to say that. He immediately got out of the driver's seat and let Gu Nianji sit beside him. He went around to the passenger seat and sat down. Gu Nianji had been driving a sports car to and from school every day, and her driving skills had indeed improved. Under Wu Xiaoheng's directions, she quickly stopped in front of Wu Xiaoheng's official residence. Gu Nianji opened the car door to let Wu Xiaoheng out. You're not going in? Wu Xiaoheng saw that Gu Nianji had no intention of going in, so he didn't force her. He extended his uninjured left hand to her. Then give me the food box. You can go back. Gu Nianji poked her head out to look at his official residence. Where are your guards? There are also orderlies. Let them take you in. Wu Xiaoheng was injured and it was his right arm that was injured. It would probably be inconvenient for him to go about his daily life. Fortunately, Wu Xiaoheng had orderlies, so Gu Nianji wasn't worried about that. However, Wu Xiaoheng shook his head and said calmly, I gave them the day off. I'm the only one here this year. Gu Nianji was speechless. She originally wanted to leave after delivering the food, but she saw that Wu Xiaoheng's right arm was injured and he didn't even have an orderly with him. She didn't know how he was going to survive the next few days, so her heart softened. She said gloomily, Aren't you going to invite me in? That's exactly what I wanted. I was just afraid that you wouldn't go in. Wu Xiaoheng moved closer to her ear and whispered, You rejected me too many times? Gu Nianji was speechless. She felt like the Monkey King who couldn't escape Buddha's grasp, so she hung her head and followed him inside. There used to be guards at the entrance of Wu Xiaoheng's official residence, and there were also guards and orderlies inside. There were people inside and out. However, when she went in today, she realized that there was no one there. They were all gone. Gu Nianji looked around in shock. Wu Xiao, don't tell me that even the chefs are on leave? She thought that Wu Xiaoheng would at least have someone stay to cook for New Year's Eve dinner. Wu Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji's food box and placed it on the dining table. He smiled faintly. The chefs are also orderlies. I'm on leave. I'm on duty anyway so I can eat in the cafeteria. There's no need to keep them from reuniting with their families. For soldiers, New Year's Eve was the only time they could look forward to. Then you can actually bring Auntie Song over to celebrate the new year with you. Gu Nianji hinted. Auntie Song is quite lonely by herself. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. Nianji, do you really think that Madame Song is afraid of being lonely? As researchers, the last thing they're afraid of is loneliness. They're more than happy to be able to do experiments alone in peace. Gu Nianji obviously disagreed. Even if Auntie Song likes to do experiments, it's New Year's Eve. It's not a normal holiday. Hua Xiao, are you really going to ignore Auntie Song? She didn't care what Song Jining was thinking. She only knew that New Year's Eve was different. It's not that I'm ignoring her, but Madame Song has her own thoughts. I can't do anything about it. Hua Xiaoheng opened the food box and took out fried rice, a box of T-bone steak and a box of blueberries. He put them on his plate and sat down. His left hand clumsily picked up the knife and fork to cut the steak. It was obvious that the one-armed general couldn't cut the steak. Gu Nianji couldn't stand it anymore. She took the plate from Hua Xiaoheng's hand and took the knife and fork with both hands. She cut the 2 steaming T-bone steaks into small pieces and pushed them back. Hua Xiaoheng didn't pick up the knife and fork to eat himself. Instead, he smiled at her, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. Gu Nianji understood. She picked up the knife and fork, forked a piece of steak and fed it to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng swallowed the steak. He felt like he had never eaten such delicious steak before. He looked at Gu Nianji with a smile. You cooked this? Gu Nianji nodded. Is it still edible? Although Hua Xiaoheng could eat anything and wasn't picky about food, he was actually very picky. He hid what was delicious and what wasn't. He usually didn't express his opinion. It's not just edible. It's very delicious. It's even better than the Kobe steak from the top kosher cuisine I had in Japan all those years ago. Hua Xiaoheng opened his mouth again. I want more. Gu Nianji carefully forked another piece of steak and thoughtfully dipped it in some sauce before feeding it to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and finished eating. He quietly sat closer to Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji focused on feeding Hua Xiaoheng the steak. After eating the steak, she used a spoon to feed him fried rice. After feeding him 2 steaks and a box of fried rice, Gu Nianji found herself practically sitting in Hua Xiaoheng's arms. Hua Xiaoheng's uninjured left arm wrapped around her waist, and he was very close to her. If Hua Xiaoheng hadn't been injured, Gu Nianji would probably have been wary and wouldn't have allowed Hua Xiaoheng to be so close to her. However, she knew that Hua Xiaoheng couldn't move his right arm, so even if he had bad intentions he wouldn't be able to do it. Gu Nianji didn't care that much. She gently touched the splint on Hua Xiaoheng's right arm. How did you get hurt? Tell me, I'll tell Auntie Song when I get back. Hua Xiaoheng turned sideways and nudged her with his forehead. How can you tell Miss Song about this? Don't you want Miss Song to have a good new year? You have a point. But if Auntie Song asks me why I left for so long, how can I explain it? Gu Nianji stuck out a finger and poked Hua Xiaoheng's chest to push him away. Hua Xiaoheng moved back and said nonchalantly, just say that I felt lonely and asked you to stay with me for a while. Gu Nianji said. Do you think Auntie Song will believe that? Hua Xiaoheng felt lonely. Couldn't he find an excuse? Yes, as long as you say it, she'll believe it. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji. Miss Song likes you very much. You're jealous? Gu Nianji also liked Song Jining very much. She smiled like a little fox. But I can't squander Auntie Song's trust just because she likes me, so I'll definitely tell Miss Song. She glanced at Hua Xiaoheng's right arm. Before Hua Xiaoheng could raise his eyebrows, Gu Nianji said, but if you let me go now, I won't say anything. I won't say a word. Hua Xiaoheng laughed and quickly kissed her on the cheek while she was feeling smug. His movements were very fast. He moved in front of Gu Nianji and moved away. His kiss was more like the gentle breeze of spring brushing across the rippling surface of the water. It was impossible to tell if the wind was moving or if the water was already moving. Gu Nianji didn't notice the kiss at all. She only felt her vision blur, and Hua Xiaoheng had already sat up straight. He said seriously, okay then go back. Don't tell Miss Song that I'm injured. Of course, Gu Nianji wouldn't say that she was just using this opportunity to escape. She didn't want to stay here for too long and cause unnecessary misunderstandings with Miss Song. Hua Xiaoheng personally walked Gu Nianji out and watched her get into the car and drive away. He took out his phone and ordered a table of New Year's Eve dinner for Gu Nianji and Song Jining from a high-end restaurant in the imperial capital. Gu Nianji drove back to Song Jining's apartment. As soon as she entered the door, she smelled the aroma of food. Oh, Andy, you made food? Gunyanji happily changed into slippers and ran inside. Song Jining was setting the bowls and chopsticks in the kitchen. She smiled and said, I didn't make it. Xiaoheng ordered New Year's Eve dinner for us. She then asked, why were you gone for so long? Did something happen? Did Xiaoheng not want you to come back? Gunyanji quickly shook her head. Of course not. Xiao and I are just normal friends. Why wouldn't he want me to come back? Song Jining looked up and froze. She stared at her face with a strange expression. Normal friends? Gunyanji nodded and was about to sit down at the table. However, Song Jining pointed to the bathroom and smiled. Go wash your face and hands first before eating. Gunyanji replied with an oh, and quickly ran to the bathroom. She inadvertently looked up and saw herself in the bathroom mirror. There was a shiny oily lip print on her face. She covered her face and couldn't speak for a long time. She only felt that she was embarrassing herself in front of Song Jining. Looking at the oily lip print on her face, Gunyanji snarled, Humph, I want to tell you. After washing her face, Gunyanji calmly told Song Jining, Auntie Song, I actually wasn't telling the truth just now. Is that so? Song Jining sat across from Gunyanji. Then what's going on? She pointed to her face as she spoke. Gunyanji blushed slightly but still forced herself to be calm. Actually, Huashao's right arm is injured, so he can't eat with his left hand. So I helped him eat. Oh? His right arm is injured, so he can't eat with his left hand? TSK, that's true. You really had to help him. Song Jining smiled meaningfully. She knew her son would never let go of Gunyanji. What did he mean by his right arm was injured and he couldn't eat with his left hand? He could only lie to a little girl like Gunyanji. Other than Song Jining and his grandmother, Xie, almost no one knew that Xiaoheng was left-handed when he was young. He learned to use his right hand from a young age because he didn't want to be different from others. This was the first update of 4,000 words. 2 updates today. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. 3 more updates tomorrow. The second update at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you, President. I am Master Rashi for tipping 100,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Mwah. P.S. Little Zay's place of exile should be the Cape of Good Hope in the southernmost part of Africa, not the Strait of Gibraltar. The Strait of Gibraltar is the southernmost part of Spain, northwest of Africa. A muddle-headed author would look at A, think about B, and finally write C, and C equals A plus B. Haha, I don't know if you can understand what's going on. Chapter 950, A Real Man has been edited. You can download it again to read. Chapter 960. But you're helping him eat. How did you end up eating on your face? Song Jining teased her and changed the subject when she saw Gunyanji's ears turn red. Nyenji, are you interested in physics? Do you want to take the postgraduate program at the Institute of High Energy Physics? Gunyanji was dipping her meat in sauce and almost choked when she heard this. She quickly took a sip of coconut juice and said, Auntie, don't scare me. I studied law as an undergraduate and also as a master. Now you're asking me if I want to take the postgraduate program at the Institute of High Energy Physics. I think I'll have to retake the college entrance exam and start physics as a freshman to have a chance. Sure. Song Jining grabbed her arm excitedly. Why don't you retake the college entrance exam? You're only 19 anyway. Even if you retake the undergraduate program, you'll graduate in 2 years. You're so smart, it's a pity you don't study physics. Gunyanji was speechless. Physics is the crown jewel of science. Song Jining continued, Nyenji, only the smartest people will study physics well. Come on, get into the B University Physics Department and then... Gunyanji changed the topic and picked up a piece of scallion sea cucumber with serving chopsticks for Song Jining. Annie, you should eat more. Sea cucumber is very nutritious. Song Jining understood what Gunyanji meant and shook her head. What a pity. Nyenji, you're so smart. I just love your talent. Gunyanji smiled in gratitude. But Auntie, I'm actually not as smart as you think. I'm just a little more hardworking than others. That's too much. It's so hypocritical. Song Jining tapped the back of her hand with her chopsticks. You don't have to be humble with Auntie. Fine. Gunyanji put down her chopsticks and said seriously, the truth is I'm not interested in physics. I have no interest at all. Song Jining finally stopped trying to persuade Gunyanji to major in physics. She sighed. Interest is the best teacher. If you're not interested in physics, then there's nothing I can do. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief when Song Jining stopped talking about it. She discreetly changed the subject. "Andy, have you liked physics since you were young?" "Yeah, I used to play with my father in his lab when I was young. I was so envious when I saw him and his colleagues and students doing experiments and discussing cutting-edge topics." Song Jining was lost in her beautiful memories. Gu Nianji suddenly remembered that Song Jining's father had died in an experimental accident. She suddenly felt very upset. It was the new year, why did she have to rub it in? However, Song Jining didn't care at all. Instead, she went to the study and took out a thick photo album. She flipped through the pages for Gu Nianji to see. Song Jining's father, Song Haichuan, was very elegant and scholarly. Song Jining's temperament was similar to her father's, but her looks were probably similar to her mother's. However, Song Jining never mentioned her mother, and Gu Nianji didn't ask either. She was afraid it would be bad if it was something sad for Song Jining. However, she soon realized that she was thinking too much. Song Jining flipped to the last part of the album. It was all family photos. It turned out that Song Jining's mother was actually very average-looking. She wasn't even as good-looking as Song Jining's father. However, she was obviously very smart and had a face full of wisdom. Song Jining caressed her mother's photo and said to Gu Nianji, "Nianji, this is my mother. Isn't she very beautiful?" Gu Nianji glanced at Song Jining and grunted, "She's very kind." Song Jining laughed, "I know that in other people's eyes, my mother is actually very average-looking. At the time, there were many female students who felt that my mother wasn't good enough for my father. However, in my heart, my mother was very beautiful." Gu Nianji was speechless. "Haha, students are always more passionate." "Yeah, very passionate. It's hard to resist. However, my father was completely ruthless. He expelled all the female students who had improper thoughts about him. He never worried my mother." Song Jining flipped a page of the album and recalled excitedly, "Aside from her average looks, my mother was top-notch in everything else. She was very smart and was a genius from a young age. She started studying physics at the age of 14. After she graduated, she naturally entered the Institute of High-Energy Physics and met my father. My father read her published papers and admired her for a long time. They were also a match made in heaven." Gu Nianji listened quietly and felt very emotional. Such a loving couple didn't last long. "My mother was involved in nuclear testing. There was a nuclear leak accident and she was exposed to radiation. She passed away after a few years." Song Jining sighed and closed the album. She said to Gu Nianji apologetically, "It's the new year. I shouldn't have said something like that." Gu Nianji was fascinated and quickly said, No, auntie, don't be sad. I've stopped being sad a long time ago. When I think of my father and mother now, I only have beautiful memories." Song Jining wiped the corners of her eyes. "Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's eat." Gu Nianji tactfully dropped the subject and began telling Song Jining about interesting things that had happened at school and in court. Song Jining laughed so hard that tears came out of her eyes. Although there were only the two of them at New Year's Eve dinner, Gu Nianji was as loud as a class of girls. The empty dining room echoed with their happy laughter. It was even livelier than the New Year's Eve gala on TV. After they finished eating, they cleaned up the dining room and occasionally looked up to see that the TV was counting down. It's almost 12 o'clock. Song Jining put down what she was doing and pulled Gu Nianji out. "Come, let's count down together." The two of them stood in front of the TV and shouted along with the host's voice, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. It's the new year. It's the new year. Loud firecrackers rang out both inside and outside the TV. There were even fireworks exploding on the rooftops in the neighborhood. Gu Nianji smiled and hugged the album she had looked at with Song Jining earlier. She asked, "Auntie, where should I put this album?" Song Jining stood by the window and looked at the fireworks in the neighborhood. She pointed casually, "The second drawer of the desk in the study over there. That drawer contained some of her old things. They weren't worth much, but they were very memorable." Gu Nianji hugged the thick album and walked into the study Song Jining pointed to. She opened the second drawer of the desk and glanced at it before putting the album inside. There were a few small things in this drawer, such as a sparkling and translucent yuhua stone, an amber with a butterfly inside, a few small wooden boxes and an ivory incense ball, all of them quite old. In the middle of the drawer was an old black smartphone. Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. The phone looked somewhat familiar. At that moment, the black screen suddenly flashed and a text message popped up. Gu Nianji was shocked and thought she was seeing things. She quickly rubbed her eyes. When she looked closely, she saw that there was a text message on the black phone's screen. There was still someone using such an old phone. Gu Nianji quickly glanced at it and saw a string of strange numbers. She quickly looked away and walked out of the study with the phone. She came to Song Jinning's side and said, "Auntie, your phone. Someone texted you to wish you a happy new year." It was already the first day of the Lunar New Year. Gu Nianji heard her phone ring. It was Hu Xiaoheng's exclusive ringtone. She stuffed the old smartphone into Song Jinning's hand and turned around to look for her own phone in her small bag. Song Jinning watched the fireworks without blinking. They were so dazzling and dazzling. The night sky was like a flower bed. The fireworks were planted and harvested. It only took a moment, but they were so dazzling and beautiful that they would last eternally. Gu Nianji looked at the fireworks as she swiped open her phone to call Hu Xiaoheng. "Hu Xiao, Happy New Year." "Happy New Year." Hu Xiaoheng's deep and magnetic voice came from the phone. It was slightly raspy, but it was indescribably sexy. Gu Nianji felt her ears burning again. She gripped the phone and turned to look at Song Jinning's back. She lowered her voice and said, "Is your arm better? Why don't you go see a doctor tomorrow?" Hu Xiaoheng's arm had long since stopped hurting, but Gu Nianji had already seen it. He couldn't back down, so he had to bandage it for a few more days. He was originally worried that his mother would expose him for being left-handed, but Gu Nianji sounded like she didn't know yet. She probably hadn't told Song Jinning about his injury. Putting aside her stubbornness and awkwardness, Gu Nianji was a very obedient little girl when it came to most things. "I'm fine. I'll be fine in 2 days." Hu Xiaoheng looked at his right arm in a sling. "It's just not convenient to wash at night." Gu Nianji's earlobes were flushed. Her exquisite little ears were like high-quality lychee jelly, pink and tender. She whispered, "Then don't wash. It won't get dirty even if you stop for a few days." "I'm not used to it." Hu Xiaoheng chuckled quietly. His left hand was on the steering wheel as he drove into Song Jinning's neighborhood. "That's why I came to you for help." Gu Nianji gasped and instinctively looked around. "What do you mean?" "My shift is over, so I came here to have some supper. Is there anything else?" Hu Xiaoheng said as he got out of the car and walked into the elevator. Gu Nianji quickly said, "Yes, there's still a lot." Gu Nianji walked over to Song Jinning with her phone and told her, "Auntie, Hu Xiao is here. He said he's hungry and wants supper." Song Jinning was very happy. She quickly turned around and said, "Really? He's here already? That's great. Let's take out the leftovers and heat them up for him." Gu Nianji was speechless. "I'll go see what's in the fridge and make some wontons," Gu Nianji said tactfully. Seeing Song Jinning's embarrassed expression, Gu Nianji quickly changed the topic. She pointed at the phone in her hand. "Someone texted you just now. You can reply with, 'Happy New Year.'" Song Jinning looked down and smiled. "Did you get the wrong phone? Why would someone text on this phone? It doesn't even have a number. It's been out of service for more than a decade." Gu Nianji finally remembered that this phone was Hu Xiaoheng's uncle, Hu Guanyuan's phone. She had seen it in court once. This phone was Hu Guanyuan's belongings. It had originally been with Hu Guanyuan's wife, Luo Xinxue, but Bai Jini had later stolen it and caused Luo Xinxue's life. This is the second update. 2 updates today. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. 3rd update tomorrow. Good night, my dear friends. I don't know if my dear friends still remember this phone. Chapter 961. Gu Nianji still clearly remembered that Bai Jini had been willing to kill to take the phone from Luo Xinxue because the phone had received the same data for several days in a row. The data only appeared on the phone, and the mobile company had no record of it. During the lawsuit, everyone had been puzzled by this. No one could explain how this phenomenon occurred. They only knew that the data was a set of coordinates that showed a location on the blue planet. Gu Nianji still remembered this set of data very clearly. Hu Xiaoheng told them that the data was actually a set of magnetic field coordinates that represented a location. The data was entered into a program and converted to another set of data, which was the latitude and longitude of a certain place in Sea City. That was the place where the magnetic field anomaly had occurred 7 years ago. It was also there that Hu Xiaoheng had saved Gu Nianji. In an instant, Gu Nianji's mind raced through everything related to the phone. She had a very good memory. Although she had only glanced at it, she had already memorized the new set of data on the phone. Could it also be a set of coordinate data? "Auntie, this phone is not ordinary. Don't you remember?" Gu Nianji reminded Song Jinning excitedly. "You also designed a very good battery for this phone." Song Jinning suddenly remembered. "You mean this phone received another message?" Song Jinning quickly pressed the power button. The phone's battery was still working. After the screen froze for 2 seconds, the text data that Gunyanji had just seen appeared on the phone screen. Look, I wasn't wrong, right? Someone sent a text to this phone again. Gunyanji rubbed her hands. She wanted to snatch the phone from Song Jining and study it herself. As soon as Song Jining saw the data, she didn't need Gunyanji to say anything and immediately walked to her study. Gunyanji was about to follow when she heard the doorbell ring. It must be Hua Xiaoheng. She looked at Song Jining's back, then at the door. Finally, she went to open the door for Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was still in his military uniform, his right arm hanging from his neck. His expression was solemn and he stood there quietly. Hua Xiao, Happy New Year. Gunyanji smiled and opened the door to let Hua Xiaoheng in. Closing the door behind Hua Xiaoheng, Gunyanji was burning with anxiety. She really wanted to go upstairs to see Song Jining's test results. Mr. Hua, take a seat first. She poured a glass of water and placed it on the coffee table in front of him. I'll be right back. Hua Xiaoheng noticed Gunyanji's anxious expression and grabbed her arm. What's wrong? What happened? Gunyanji thought about it. There was nothing she couldn't say. Hua Xiaoheng was the one who saw that the data could be converted into coordinate data. Hua Xiao, do you still remember your uncle's magical phone? Hua Xiaoheng nodded. He looked a little confused. Does it matter? It was the Lunar New Year, and he had come all the way here not to talk about his uncle's cell phone. Gunyanji said seriously, just now, just after midnight, that phone received another set of text data. You're saying that the old smartphone that has stopped working a long time ago and doesn't have a phone number just received another set of text messages? Hua Xiaoheng immediately recalled the data they had received from the phone during the lawsuit last year. The last time was 7 years ago. 7 years later, the phone was lit up again. What changes would it bring? Hua Xiaoheng was no longer in the mood for supper. Where's the phone? What's the data? Gunyanji pointed upstairs. And he took it to her study. She's probably doing some data conversion. Let's go. Hua Xiaoheng naturally took Gunyanji's hand and walked upstairs with her. Gunyanji was in a hurry to see the phone, so she didn't push Hua Xiaoheng away. They went to Song Jining's study together. Song Jining's study was very spacious. It was divided into 2 halves by a mahogany cabinet. In front was a small living room with a corner sofa, a coffee table and 2 green guanyin trees. Behind the cabinet was where Song Jining actually worked. The wall was full of bookshelves filled with books. Next to the bay window was a large desk with a high-performance computer that could be used as a server. There were 3 monitors lined up on the desk. Song Jining sat behind the monitors and had already started data conversion. Gunyanji knocked on the cabinet and greeted, Auntie, Hua Xiao is here. Song Jining didn't even look up. He's here. Let him sit. Gunyanji smiled and walked to her desk with Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng walked behind the desk without hesitation and stood behind Song Jining to watch her data conversion. After the conversion, the data would become latitude and longitude coordinates that could easily indicate a specific location. Miss Song, have you found the place? Hua Xiaoheng bowed forward and looked at the coordinates that appeared on the monitor. Where is this? Song Jining whispered dreamily. The United States, the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Gunyanji was speechless. Hua Xiaoheng was slightly taken aback. The Metropolitan Museum in New York? What does that mean? I don't know either. Song Jining shook her head and fidgeted in her seat. I want to go to New York to take a look. Gunyanji was speechless. In the early hours of the first day of the Lunar New Year, Miss Song suddenly said she wanted to go to New York. Gunyanji instinctively felt that something was wrong. She looked up at the calm Hua Xiaoheng and said softly, Hua Xiao, why don't we use the satellite to see if there's anything unusual over there? Song Jining nodded quickly. That's a good idea. Let's use the satellite to take a look first. Xiaoheng, I know your satellite's accuracy is already very high. Hurry up and take a look. She stood up as she spoke, wishing she could chase Hua Xiaoheng away right now. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gunyanji, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You're good at coming up with ideas. Isn't my idea good? Gunyanji tilted her head and winked slyly. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and calmly looked away. He felt a little annoyed, as if there was a fire in his chest that had been ignited by her. Hua Xiaoheng suppressed the throbbing in his heart and used his Bluetooth headset to call the central control system of the Special Operations Forces headquarters base. He said to the subordinate on duty there, help me check a place and see if there's anything unusual recently. He reported the coordinates of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. Yes, sir. The person on duty there quickly entered the coordinates into the central control system and connected to the Nandu satellite communication system. After the satellite received the command, it pulled up the real-time data of the Metropolitan Museum in New York for the past week from its database. For some reason, New York was the designated observation location of the Nandu satellite. This was not surprising. Just like the imperial capital was also the designated observation location of the U.S. satellite, everyone was equal and no one was inferior to the other. Soon, the Nandu satellite sent the stored data back to the ground and was received by the central control system of the Special Operations Forces headquarters base. While waiting for the data, Gu Nianji went to the kitchen downstairs to make Hua Xiaoheng some wontons for supper. Hua Xiaoheng stayed in the study and spoke to Song Jining for a while before coming out to look for Gu Nianji. She scooped out the fragrant wontons and placed them in a small white porcelain bowl filled with chicken broth. She sprinkled some tender green onions, slippery seaweed, and fresh shrimp skin on them before placing them in front of Hua Xiaoheng, piping hot. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her. Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows and sat down to feed him the wontons with a spoon. There were only 6 wontons in a small bowl. Hua Xiaoheng felt like he could eat all 6 of them in one bite. They were as small as buttons. However, Gu Nianji still fed them one by one. He had just finished eating the wontons patiently when he heard his subordinate call him through his Bluetooth headset. Hua Xiao, why do you want to see the data from the New York Metropolitan Museum? There really is a problem. What problem? Hua Xiaoheng stood up. Send it to my email. The person agreed and quickly sent it over. Hua Xiaoheng returned to Song Jining's study. Miss Song, let me borrow your computer. Song Jining gave him a laptop. Hua Xiaoheng logged onto the encrypted website, entered his email and opened the exclusive email that his subordinate had sent him. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed after taking a quick glance. He typed a few times on the keyboard and forwarded a set of data to Song Jining's email. Miss Song, take a look. Doesn't this set of data look familiar? Song Jining opened her email and received the email. When she saw the set of data, she was also stunned. After a while, she asked eagerly, where did this data come from? Where is it? Hua Xiaoheng knocked on the laptop's casing. It's the New York Metropolitan Museum. The data from a few days ago has disappeared. Song Jining was very disappointed. It's already disappeared? Yes, this is the data stored by the satellite. The real-time data just now shows that everything is normal at the New York Metropolitan Museum. Gu Nianji listened for a long time and asked in confusion, Hua Xiao auntie, what data are you talking about? Is it the text message just now? No, Song Jining said excitedly. It's a magnetic field. An abnormal magnetic field appeared at the New York Metropolitan Museum a few days ago. This time, because it was indoors, the information captured by the satellite was very weak. The data they were seeing now was already the result of optimization and enhancement. Otherwise, it would have been ignored. In the past, they had discovered this kind of abnormal magnetic field information outdoors. This was the first time it had appeared indoors. This is the first update. Today is the third update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. At 1 p.m., monthly votes for 2,400 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third update. P.S. Thank you to Lavender Mimi and Momo Moshi for the 2 Chidian coins this morning. Chapter 962. Abnormal Magnetic Field? Gu Nianji instinctively looked at Hua Xiaoheng. This was not the first time she had heard of this term. What's going on? What's the significance of this abnormal magnetic field? Gu Nianji finally couldn't help but ask as she looked at Song Jining's excited face. Song Jining glanced at Gu Nianji, then looked at Hua Xiaoheng inquiringly. Can I tell you? Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Nianji's security clearance is similar to mine. If you have something to say, just say it. Song Jining was shocked. Similar to yours? That high? Because they were already husband and wife, Hua Xiaoheng wanted to confess to Song Jining, but before he spoke, he quickly glanced at Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji suddenly blushed and clasped her hands together pleadingly to cover her lips. She lowered her eyes and her long eyelashes fluttered as she peeked at him through the gaps between her long eyelashes. Hua Xiaoheng's heart suddenly softened. His Adam's apple bobbed as he calmly said, yes, the military decided. Song Jining didn't dwell on this issue anymore. She sat down and pulled up the memo on the computer to tell Gu Nianji about the past. This matter started from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the military secretly contacted my father, academician Song Haichuan, and asked him about the theoretical prospects of abnormal magnetic fields. They also showed him a set of abnormal magnetic field data that the military had accidentally obtained. To him, this data was no less than opening the door to a new world. My father immediately agreed to cooperate with the military to conduct highly classified magnetic field research. But something went wrong. 17 years ago, just as our research was about to achieve a breakthrough, a major accident occurred in the experiment. The energy of the abnormal magnetic field suddenly exploded, and everyone in the lab was caught in it. Only I was pushed by Xiaoheng's uncle, Senior Colonel Hua Guanyuan, and escaped from the lab. Everyone else died a violent death. My father and the other researchers in the lab died on the spot. Senior Colonel Hua Guanyuan and 4 soldiers from the military didn't even leave a corpse behind. Song Jining flipped through the records on the computer, and her eyes gradually reddened. Gu Nianji looked at her sympathetically and sat next to her. She gently rested her head on her slender but straight shoulder. Song Jining patted her cheek, took a deep breath and continued speaking. After that I became deranged. I don't remember what happened after that. Xiaoheng told me what happened after that. Song Jining looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and continued. After my grandfather and uncle passed away, the military's experiment was suspended. Firstly, it was because 2 of the most important researchers were dead, and one had lost his mind. There was no one left who could shoulder the responsibility. Secondly, because of the huge energy explosion of this abnormal magnetic field, the military is not sure if they should continue to research it and open Pandora's box. Until 7 years ago, Bai Jini, who was already the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, suddenly reported to the military that she had tested a set of abnormal magnetic field data, almost exactly the same as the one 17 years ago. She even said that the location of the abnormal magnetic field was in Sea City. That's why we appeared in Sea City and set up equipment to receive magnetic fields. However, that experiment didn't succeed either. The car Nianji was in suddenly barged into a magnetic field and caused a huge car accident. Gu Nianji gasped. So the car I was in exploded into powder because of the energy explosion of the abnormal magnetic field? Hua Xiaoheng nodded slowly. That's our guess, but it's just a guess because we can't repeat the experiment to verify our conclusion. Song Jining raised Hua Guanyuan's old smartphone. We now know that the abnormal magnetic field data that Bai Jini proposed 7 years ago wasn't measured by her, but obtained from this phone. In other words, someone sent a message to this phone and provided the location of the abnormal magnetic field. Hua Xiaoheng took the old black smartphone from Song Jining's hand and turned it over and over before handing it back to her. That means that every time an abnormal magnetic field appears, this phone will warn us? Gu Nianji stared at the phone curiously. But it was an advance notice 7 years ago. Why did it only send a message after the abnormal magnetic field appeared this time? Hua Xiaoheng and Song Jining looked at each other. They were both very impressed by Gu Nianji's keen observation skills. Our Nianji is still the smartest. Song Jining liked her even more. She pulled Gu Nianji into her arms and patted her head. This is the problem we have to solve. Why was it lagging this time? Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms and paced back and forth in Song Jining's study. He mused, actually, we shouldn't be led by the nose by this phone. I agree. Gu Nianji quickly raised her hand and agreed with Hua Xiaoheng. I think we might as well find out who sent the text to this phone. Wouldn't that be more helpful? Instead of being driven around by the phone's notifications every time, it was better to take the initiative. Hua Xiaoheng knew more about the situation. He turned to look at Gu Nianji and said dryly, don't take this phone and the person who sent the text too seriously. The abnormal magnetic field data appeared once before, and this phone didn't give any warnings. There's more? Gu Nianji's eyes widened. Where? How did you find out? It appeared in the Gulf of Aden in the Indian Ocean, near the Red Sea. Many countries sent warships to investigate that time. Hua Xiaoheng leaned against the windowsill and stretched out his long legs. He said calmly, because our country isn't the only country doing this experiment. The United States, Germany, and Japan are all doing this experiment. We used to be in the lead, but now, we're falling behind. Song Jining said sullenly. Gu Nianji's curvy lips opened and closed. Her expression was very amused. Then what should we do? Is there a way to surpass them? Yes. Song Jining suddenly became playful. She hugged Gu Nianji's shoulder. Nianji, if you join us, we can surpass them. Gu Nianji was speechless. Auntie, you're messing with me again. She hugged Song Jining's arm and rubbed her head against her shoulder. Song Jining laughed. Too bad you're not interested in physics. Otherwise we'd be so happy if we could work together. Auntie, you have so many colleagues. I'm sure you'll be able to find like-minded people. Gu Nianji smiled as she made a heart sign. Good luck. Hua Xiaoheng saw that they were going off topic, so he quietly pulled Gu Nianji out of Song Jinning's arms. Miss Song, it's very late. You should rest early. It's already the first day of the new year. I have to take Nianji to General Ji's house early in the morning for New Year's greetings. Do you want to go with us? Why would I go? Song Jinning waved her hand disapprovingly. Okay, I got it. You guys go rest. You still have to wake up early in the morning. I'll run another program to calm myself. She then chased Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng out. This is the second update. Monthly votes of 2,400 plus updates have arrived. Today is the third update. I'm asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Third update at 7 p.m. P.S. I said in the group that there are no aliens in this text. Dear friends, please stop speculating about aliens. Chapter 963. Holding Gu Nianji's hand, Hua Xiaoheng left Song Jinning's study with familiarity and walked towards Gu Nianji's pink bedroom. Gu Nianji, Hua Xiao, you know I have a room here? When Miss Song was renovating, she specially suggested to renovate a room for you. I didn't object. Do you think you can oppose it? Gu Nianji was so happy that her bones felt lighter. She said proudly, Auntie is your mother. How can you go against what your mother says? Besides, Auntie has a discerning eye for talent. Didn't you see how much Auntie dotes on me? Hua Xiaoheng looked at her little face that was about to explode and curled the corners of his lips. The fire that had been ignited by her rose again. When he arrived at her room, he pushed the door open and entered. Hua Xiaoheng was caught off guard and was almost blinded by the pink decorations in the room. He was silent for a moment before turning to look at Gu Nianji. Are you sure you want to stay in this room? What's wrong? You don't like it? Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng and suddenly liked the house. I fell in love with this house at first sight. In any case, Gu Nianji felt good about making Hua Xiaoheng suffer. Hua Xiaoheng closed the door nonchalantly. As long as you like it. He pulled Gu Nianji to the bathroom. Come, help me shower. Gu Nianji, come in. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her calmly and said nonchalantly, I'll be going to General Ji's house in a few hours for New Year's greetings. You don't want me to go like this, do you? Under the light of the bathroom, Hua Xiaoheng's forehead was covered in tiny beads of sweat. They were thin and seeped through his skin. He looked surprisingly alluring. Gu Nianji looked away and nodded. Yeah, I'll turn the water on for you. She walked over to the tub and bent down to open the tap. Beneath her slender waist were unexpectedly plump breasts that swayed in front of him as they bowed their bodies. Hua Xiaoheng gulped again and undid the top button of his military uniform. After filling the water, Gu Nianji straightened her back and turned around to see that Hua Xiaoheng had already unbuttoned his uniform and was attempting to take off his jacket. Let me do it. Gu Nianji walked over and sat Hua Xiaoheng down on the chair. She helped him undress, carefully avoiding his right arm. I need to change the dressing on my wound. You go out first, I'll do it myself. Hua Xiaoheng thought about how his wound looked and decided not to let Gu Nianji see it. Although the injury wasn't serious and it didn't hurt his bones, the external injury wasn't good. Gu Nianji looked at him sullenly. It's okay, I'll change it for you. She took out the first aid kit from the bathroom and took out gauze and ointment. Are these okay? She asked. Okay, just take the medicine regularly. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her. You're really not afraid? I've seen scarier ones. Gu Nianji recalled the time when she was fleeing in the German Alps. A bullet had grazed her arm and hit her left leg. She was no stranger to the bloody wound. When did you see it? Hua Xiaoheng was confused. He was certain that he had never let Gu Nianji see it when he was injured. Gu Nianji untied his bandage and looked at the slightly charred area. She gently pressed it with her hand, then used a gauze soaked in sterile water to scrub the affected area. She said nonchalantly, When I was in Germany, I didn't know much about this. I didn't tell you, did I? I was shot in more than one place. My arm and calf were all wounded. But, she laughed self-deprecatingly. My body is too special. Look, it only took a few days for me to recover like I was never injured. No one would believe me if I told them. That was why she didn't tell Hua Xiaoheng after she returned. In the beginning she was afraid he would worry, but she was heartbroken and didn't want to tell him. Now that she saw Hua Xiaoheng was actually worried that she was afraid to see the wound, Gu Nianji finally told him. She didn't want sympathy or to boast. She only wanted to show that she wasn't weak and wouldn't faint at the sight of blood. However, Hua Xiaoheng grabbed her hand and looked up at her. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. After a while he finally said, "Nianji." His voice was extremely low and hoarse. "It's my fault. I made you suffer." Gu Nianji, who had been spoiled by his side for 6 years and rarely even fell, had experienced such pain and torture in the Alps. Hua Xiaoheng was so uncomfortable that he couldn't speak. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her lips. Gu Nianji buried her head in his chest and whispered, "At that time I really missed you. But I never blamed you. I knew you had more important things to do. I just didn't expect that your more important thing was to accompany." Hua Xiaoheng lowered his head and blocked her unfinished words with his lips again. The two of them kissed like glue for a long time. When they released each other they were both panting. Gu Nianji's eyes were misty. Under the bathroom lights she looked at Hua Xiaoheng hazily. Her eyes were so crystal clear that they looked like they were about to drip water. Hua Xiaoheng held the back of her neck and couldn't help but lower his head to kiss her lips again. Gu Nianji saw that he wouldn't stop and could only push him away. She said angrily, "The water is already cold. Why aren't you taking a shower?" Hua Xiaoheng smiled and got up to unbuckle his belt, revealing his strong waist. 2 mermaid lines were clearly visible. Gu Nianji blushed a little but she didn't look away. Hua Xiaoheng strode into the bathtub. Gu Nianji applied the shower gel for him and helped him take a battle bath. During this time Hua Xiaoheng actually didn't take advantage of her. Gu Nianji was a little surprised. However, she didn't show it. She quickly used the showerhead to rinse Hua Xiaoheng's body and threw a large towel to him. Only then was she done. Gu Nianji was so tired that her waist was about to break. Hua Xiaoheng smiled as he got out of the bathtub. "Thank you. I'll give you a massage later." Gu Nianji waved her hand. "No, I'll definitely be more tired after you massage me. Let me sleep for a while." She walked out first and went to the closet to change into her pajamas. Hua Xiaoheng didn't stay in her room. He gave her a good-night kiss and went to his own room. Song Jining had also renovated a room for Hua Xiaoheng in her apartment. Hua Xiaoheng was unexpected in every way today. Gu Nianji felt that the Hua Xiaoheng who kept his distance from her in the past had returned. Lying on the bed she couldn't fall asleep. She played with her phone. She saw that she had a lot of greeting messages she hadn't read, so she opened each one to reply. There were messages from Ma Qiqi, Yin Shixiang, her undergraduate roommates Green Tea Fong, Little Temptress, and Lady Chow, as well as colleagues from the American law firm she had worked with in Germany. The 2 most recent greeting messages were from He Jichu and Qin Lai. Gu Nianji first replied to He Jichu with, "Happy New Year," before opening Qin Lai's message. Qin Lai not only wished her a Happy New Year, but he also gave her a big red packet. Gu Nianji saw that Qin Lai had texted her just a minute ago, so she decided to call him directly. "Brother Qin? Are you asleep?" Gu Nianji greeted him with a smile. Qin Lai wasn't asleep. He was sitting on the bed reading a thick medical monograph in English while chatting with Gu Nianji. "Brother Qin, what do you think is going on with my constitution? Why do I recover so quickly when I'm injured? And it's so good that you can't even see a scar." Gu Nianji's voice actually sounded a bit upset. Qin Lai laughed. "Miss Gu, how many people dream of having your constitution? Are you still not satisfied? How is it bad to be able to recover immediately? I've been researching it all this time. When I figure out the theory and can develop drugs, I'll be able to win a Nobel Prize." "Of course it's bad." Gu Nianji rolled over and said angrily, "Did you know? There's no shock without a wound. I told Hua Xiao that I was injured in Germany, but I didn't have the confidence because I didn't have any gunshot wounds on my body." "You're angry about that?" Qin Lai didn't really understand the girl's train of thought. "Your constitution is special. Hua Xiao already knew from the time you were infected with H3ob7, so you don't have to think too much about it." Gu Nianji's heart skipped a beat. This had been bothering her for a long time. She quickly asked, "Really? Brother Qin, do you know anything about H3ob7? "Yes, Oda Masao is dead. Only I, Qin Lai, know about it the best." Qin Lai was smug. "Ask away, girl. Your brother Qin will tell you everything I know." "Really? Then does this aphrodisiac have to be cured by having sex with someone?" Gu Nianji asked calmly. Her tone was relaxed and Qin Lai didn't sense her nervousness at all. As expected, Qin Lai fell for it and said casually, "Of course, there's no other way to cure this aphrodisiac other than having sex with someone. But you're the only one who survived the side effects after having sex. No one else could." "Really?" Gu Nianji's heart pounded. Then someone had sex with me back then? Of course. Qinlai answered quickly and loudly. This is the third update. We're asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes today. Chapter 964. In that instant, Gunyanji felt like her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She studied law and was best at court trials and lawsuits. After a few major lawsuits, she was already an expert among experts when it came to tricking people out of their mouths. All this time she had followed the three elements of tricking people out of them. Timing. 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 Nothing was more important than timing. For example, today was just after New Year's Eve and around 2 a.m. on the first day of the Lunar New Year, the time of year when a person's willpower was at its weakest. Even the Special Operations Forces members who had undergone special training were the easiest to break down on a night like this when they were so busy and excited that they couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. The most effective way of tricking people out of them didn't depend on how clever or brain-draining the topic was, but it had to be absolutely simple, direct, and straight to the point so that the other party couldn't react in time. What they blurted out was the closest thing to the truth. Just like earlier, she picked up where Qinlai left off and directly asked her own question. Qinlai instinctively said his most direct response, "Of course." What was of course? Did she have to sleep with someone to get the antidote? Gunyanji immediately recalled what Yi Zitan had said to her before her execution. "Nyenji, the person I've let down the most is you. You're actually more pitiful than me. I shouldn't have cooperated with others to hurt you. I still remember that time you were violated to that extent and covered in wounds. I felt so bad seeing that. How could I pour salt on your wounds? I must have been possessed." Ever since she had been kidnapped by Seth and his men in Germany, she had pretended to faint and overheard H3ob7's functions and effects. This suspicion had remained in her heart and had snowballed and gotten bigger and bigger. She still remembered the first time she had fallen victim to this so-called H3ob7 at her classmate Feng Yishi's birthday party. Qinlai later told her that he had developed an antidote, so she would be fine and wouldn't need to have sex with a man. However, after returning from Germany, Qinlai's assistant, Dr. Yi Zitan, was caught as a traitor. She had betrayed 2 Special Operations Forces field agents just so they could lead people to Gunyanji's location. Before Yi Zitan was executed, Gunyanji saw her one last time. As soon as she closed her eyes, Gunyanji could see Yi Zitan through a glass wall, laughing and crying at the same time. That was when the seeds of doubt began to sprout. I have to sleep with someone to get rid of it? Then I've really been violated? Gunyanji immediately asked Yi Zitan's question. Perhaps the word waste was too shocking, but Qinlai, who had been drowsy and about to fall asleep, suddenly woke up. It was as if someone had poured a basin of snow water on his head. The coldness penetrated his heart from the inside out. Gradually he was at a loss of what to do. His limbs stiffened and even his tongue seemed to be frozen, unable to speak. It's over, it's over. Qinlai clutched his head and wailed in his heart. He wanted nothing more than to bang his head against the wall. Why couldn't he control his mouth? Back then, Hua Xiaoheng had forced him to make a military pledge. If Gunyanji found out, he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Qinlai almost wanted to bury himself under the blankets and pretend he hadn't heard Gunyanji. However, Gunyanji wasn't going to let him off so easily. Brother Qin? Brother Qin? I know you're listening. Tell me, was I really raped by someone? Gunyanji's voice became lower and lower, and in the quiet night, it was almost audible. Qinlai was struggling between telling Hua Xiaoheng and admitting that she was raped. There seemed to be 2 little people hiding in his mind. A little person with a black horn on his head kept egging him on. Tell her, just say that she was raped. That doesn't count as a violation of the military pledge because she didn't drag Hua Xiaoheng into it. A little person with a shiny halo on his head looked at him nervously. Better tell her the truth. This girl is pitiful enough. Qinlai wasn't a bad person. On the contrary, he was very kind, warm, and generous. Generally speaking, people who chose to become doctors all had a deep desire to save lives, and save a building from collapse. Qinlai was also the chief doctor of the Special Operations Forces, so his dedication in this area was deeper than the average doctor's. However, Hua Xiaoheng had shocked him too much. It wasn't just because of the military pledge, but because Qinlai knew that Hua Xiaoheng was a man of his word. He had a feeling that if this matter really came out of his mouth, being able to spend the rest of his life in prison was probably already his best option. He didn't even dare to imagine what would happen to him. Zhao Liangzi had only been drunk and had teased Hua Xiaoheng about being dumped by Gunyanji. He had been exiled by Hua Xiaoheng to a deserted island in the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. And because he had spoken too fast, he would probably feel better if he hung himself with a rope. Thinking of this, Chen Lai crawled out from under the blankets. His nose was a little sore and he wanted to cry. Nianji, don't force me. Brother Chen is unlucky to have been tricked by a clever little girl like you. It's Brother Chen's fault, but I beg you don't ask any more, okay? If you ask again, Brother Chen will really have no choice but to hang himself with a rope. Gu Nianji's heart sank. Brother Chen, did Hua Xiao tell you not to say it? Her heart was sour and sweet and extremely uncomfortable. She knew that she couldn't have been raped. Because before she lost consciousness, she knew that she was with Chen Lai, and he had taken her to the Special Operations Forces base. And in Hua Xiaoheng's territory, no one could have raped her. But Yi Zitan's words and Chen Lai's reaction proved that Yi Zitan wasn't making up a rumor. What did this mean? This meant that Gu Nianji had indeed experienced intense sex at the time. So when Yi Zitan saw her afterwards, she thought that she had been raped. So who had slept with her? Who had become her antidote? Brother Chen, tell me, did you find someone to sleep with me and become my antidote? Gu Nianji clenched her fists tightly, her body as stiff as her voice. If you don't say, I'll take it as a yes. Thinking about how her virginity had ended just like that, Gu Nianji's heart ached. Her face was pale and she was so upset that she wanted to die. So this was the reason why Hua Xiaoheng had avoided her in the first place? Ever since she had woken up, Hua Xiaoheng hadn't seen her for a full 6 months. Was it because seeing her reminded him of sleeping with someone else? Brother Chen, tell me, is this true? Does Hua Xiao know about this? Gu Nianji cried. She was so ashamed that she wanted to hide herself. Thinking about how Hua Xiaoheng had insisted on avoiding her, and how she had shamelessly chased after him, throwing a tantrum and confessing all sorts of things, she wanted to jump off the 24th floor. Hearing Gu Nianji cry, Chen Lai panicked and quickly said, Nianji, don't cry, I'm doing this for your own good. For my own good. You should have at least told me. Gu Nianji pounded the bed and cried herself hoarse. Do you know, every time I think about what I did back then, forcing him to accept me, I want to die. A man can't accept something like that, but what did I do? Brother Chen, you really killed me. I don't have the face to see Hua Xiao anymore. Gu Nianji was so angry she threw her phone away. She had a feeling that Hua Xiaoheng had known about this, and he had struggled and avoided it. It was her, she was the one who forced him to be with her. Otherwise, why couldn't he find any woman? Why did he have to be with someone like her? Did he not let Chen Lai say it because he was afraid she would feel bad? He had always been this kind of person, always thinking for her best. Even after finding out about this, he still chose to be with her in the end. She remembered her first time with Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng had done it with her in the bathtub. But she had thought that Hua Xiaoheng was too anxious, but now that she thought about it, he must have been worried that she would find out the truth, so he deliberately did it with her in the bathtub. He didn't want her to feel sad or guilty, and he didn't want her to have any psychological burdens. He shouldered everything on his own and moved forward with the burden. No matter how hard or tiring it was, he would only say nothing. Gu Nianji's tears fell like rain. For her immature self, for Hua Xiaoheng, who silently did everything for her. This was the first watch. There were 2 watches today. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.